you need help with addiction and don't know where to go, you can call the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration 24 hours a day. The number is 1-800-662-HELP or 1-800-662-4357. They work around the clock and will help you find what you need.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and you are on the Lifeboat. Happy Halloween, everybody. I don't think I said that on the last live feed, but it is that day of the month for October this year. Happy Halloween. Hopefully you're giving tons of candy out to little kids. I personally am shutting the blinds and pretending there's no one home. But nevertheless, it is Halloween. I'm really happy everyone is decided to join us here. Today's subject matter, people, is near and dear to the heart of everybody on the lifeboat. Of course, I'm talking about not quitting. The reason that I held up on the second quitting is because the illustration I'm going to use today is someone who just didn't quit. Now, it's applicable, and it's something that you'll see how we tie all of this in, people. But human nature makes it so that discomfort makes us want to give in. It is the nature of humans. When we start to feel discomfort, whether that discomfort be physical or mental, emotional, spiritual, all of those things start to erode at our determination. And determination is one of the key factors when you decide to get sober and leave the previous life behind and start partying, ending the drug game and start partying in a new life. That determination is really what is going to carry you through on so many of those days where you just don't want to do it anymore. So this afternoon, I wanted to talk about a young man by the name of Chris Nitic. And if you haven't heard of him before, you're probably going to have a pretty good idea of who he is by the time I'm done talking. But he is a boy that was born with some real challenges. The first of which was 2 holes in his heart. Before the age of 5 months old, they had to crack this young boy's chest cavity and perform open heart surgery on him. And that lasted for a period of time, but he had to have a second open heart surgery before he was 8 years old. 2 open heart surgeries before his 8th year. He was also born with very narrow ear canals. Now, this is a real issue in a lot of ways, people. First of all, because everything is connected. You have your ears going to your nose, going to all of those nasal and ear. This is why when you go to a doctor, you go to an ear, nose, and throat specialist because it's all one big thing. And if you have narrowed canals and things of that nature, what happens is any small little thing you get becomes far, far more serious. And you end up with people who really, every small cold becomes something that in a lot of cases can be life-threatening. And in Chris's case, he had 4 surgeries on his ears, also before he was about 12 years old. Every single thing that you could have as a challenge in life, this young man had to deal with. And because of the narrowed ear canals, there are certain other issues that come up. As most people know, your equilibrium is parked directly inside your ears. So it really hurts with balance and other things. It also hurts reaction times, and it just makes things a real serious challenge just getting along in life. Things like riding a bike, things like being able to run without, falling down. Those balance issues really become something. And Chris Nitic decided that at a young age, when he was about 18 or 19 years old, he decided that he wanted to run and compete in the Ironman triathlon. People, if you're not familiar with the Ironman triathlon, you talk about a competition that chose its name well. Iron Man, right? It definitely brings forth a visual image in your head when you think about what that term means. But what it means in competition is a 2 mile swim that takes place most often in an ocean. So you deal with waves and you deal with salt water and all of the things that goes along with that. After you complete a 2 mile swim, you need to get on a bike and pedal 112 miles. When that 112 miles is over, yeah, you're 2/3 of the way done with this Ironman triathlon. Now all you got to do is run a marathon. 26.22 miles later, you will have finished an Ironman triathlon. That is, of course, providing that you did it in 17 hours. If you do it in 17 hours and 30 seconds, you're a stud, but you are not an Ironman. And that, people, is just the fact of the competition, and no exceptions are made for anybody. So when Chris Nitic started to dream of competing in the Ironman, he did what most athletes would do, and he found somebody through the help of his dad. He got somebody by the name of Dan Breed, and Dan was a stud. This is a guy that had been through 15 triathlons himself, competed and finished 15 triathlons. And he agreed, in spite of the person's really young age, because most triathletes are not in their early 20s. This is an event that usually people compete later in life. Now, obviously, you'd be in better physical condition when you're in your early 20s. But most people say that the Ironman triathlon is not really 3 events, it's 4. Because something always happens to every single athlete that competes in the Ironman, and it is that unknown factor, right? It is that thing that happens, whether it's blisters or whether it's, people get sick. There is always something that every athlete has to overcome in order to break that tape in under 17 hours. And this was no exception with Chris Nitic. But first of all, when he started to train, he had not yet learned to swim. He also had not yet learned to ride a bike. So because of the narrowed ear canals and because of the balance issues, he had to take very special care in learning to pedal a bicycle and be able to balance doing it. When the first day that he tried swimming, he was unable to make it across a pool. And this was a man that was going to have to do 2 miles in an ocean. So as this training started, they came up with a very unique concept. As opposed to setting goals that seemed out of reach, especially for somebody with challenges, health-wise, they decided that they were going to try to get 1% better each day. Just 1%. They had T-shirts printed up. They had things written on boards. Everywhere you could look, it said 1%. And over the course of the years, Chris Nitic did just that. Every day, he shot for 1% better than the day before. It's a slow process. It really is. But what it did was it put a rock solid base, as opposed to people that try to get so much done so fast and don't really get the same kind of base performance. Chris really started to build himself into an athlete. And eventually, he got to the point where they believed the time had come to enter him into an Ironman triathlon in November of 2020, the 12th of November to be exact. In 2020, Chris Nitic entered the Ironman triathlon in Florida. And when he left the ocean, he was 15 minutes ahead of the schedule that they had printed up. And perfect, right? Life is going great. He then got out of his swim garb and got into his running gear and started to run. Unfortunately, at about 20 miles in, he started to experience blistering, which happens to a lot of athletes when you run that far. And when you bike that far. And he got off of the bike and in the process of doing so, stood in an fire ant hill. He ended up with so many stings from fire ants that the poison in his ankles literally caused boils before the end of the race. But he got back on that bike and he started to ride. And then coming down an incline at about 50 miles into the bike race, he crashed, removed all of the skin off of one of his knees, took a very, very serious tumble. The fire ants cost him 20 minutes of time while they got him cleaned up, and 30 minutes it took to get him back on the bike and riding again after he crashed. They had to repair the bike. Nevertheless, Chris kept pedaling. The 112 miles got finished. And then all he simply had to do was run a marathon. This is really hard to wrap your brain around, people. And I'm going to have a bugger of a time getting through the rest of this story because it's one of those things that is so inspiring, honestly, that it'll make you feel number one inspired, and number two, it'll make you feel like you really have not done a whole lot in your life when you start to compare yourself with some other people. But he started to run the marathon and really came up into challenges. Unfortunately, he hit the wall, which is a term that marathon runners use, to where your body says, I quit. And your brain at that point has to overcome your body. You have to never quit quitting. You have to step up and say, I'm going to push through pain where my body really truthfully believes that I'm going to die if I continue to do this. The brain is saying, when you hit the wall, the brain is saying, hey, warning, you keep doing this and we're going to shut down. We're not going to be able to survive. But Chris Nitic continued to push on at mile 15. At mile 15, it got difficult to the point where they had to call his dad out to meet him on the course for inspiration. And they started to come up with a system where he was going to sprint to get through 10 cones because these cones had been separated specific distances. And his coach, who was running with him, said, look, if we can just run 10 of these, I'll let you walk 2. And a crazy thing happened. At the 15-mile mark, he was actually going faster than he had gone at the 3-mile mark. Something had kicked in terms of his determination and his drive, and he continued to run. And with about 30 minutes to spare, he broke the tape and got in under the 17-hour mark. And on the 12th of November 2020, Chris Nitic became an Ironman. The problems that he had at birth were as it turns out, the small things that I was talking about in the last live feed. They were the $12 light bulbs. The larger challenge for Chris Nitic is that he has Down syndrome. In spite of that, he finished an Ironman triathlon. He trained and finished an Ironman triathlon, and in the process became probably the first poster child for the 6,000 kids who are born every year in this country with Down syndrome. And when they said, if somebody tells you you can't do something, Chris, what do you tell them? His response was, bet me. Bet me. And I'm telling you people right now, when we're done with this, go look up this story. It'll take you about 12 minutes of your life to watch a little documentary that they put on, and it's all over YouTube. It'll take about 12 minutes. Spend that 12 minutes and watch the Chris Nitic story and watch what this young man proved to the world. And he did it with a very simple rule. And that rule was he was not going to quit. Really, when we talk about not quitting, right? Never quit quitting. What we're saying is unique because what we're trying to do is quit. What we're trying to do is overcome. What we're trying to do is push through the wall that we've hit. Because our brain, as you start to try to get sober, your brain is telling you exactly what Chris's brain was telling him when he was 15 miles into that marathon, right? We can't do this. Your brain is saying, just quit, go back and do what you do. People, I'm telling you, if somebody with the challenges that Chris Nitic was born with can set a goal like that and say, I'm going to get better 1% each day, what are we capable of? By the grace of God, or whatever else you would like to believe, everybody on this channel right now was born with some very serious gifts, right? Even if that gift is just not having a deficit, you were born gifted. I was born gifted. Mark was born gifted. This entire crew was born gifted. And I'll tell you something, people, when I watched this documentary on Chris Nitic, this was the most difficult live feed that I have ever gotten ready to do because I don't know that guilt is the right word. Shame. I think shame might be the word. I was built and given a series of gifts by the Creator, a ton of them. One of which is my ability to communicate. And you people see that every day. I'm here and I'm talking, and I don't have a problem, um, you know, speaking to a crowd of people, whether that crowd of people happens to be a camera that I'm staring at. It's got a little round thing on it, so I know where your eyes will meet mine. Or if that happens to be actually 1,800 of you in a room, I would not be affected one way or the other. I have no problem speaking in public. It's just one of those things. I also was gifted in that I was not born with any deficits like Chris Nitic was, and with all of the gifts that were bestowed upon me by God, um, I repaid him by sticking needles in my arms and by doing 6 to 7 grams of heroin a day for decades. Pretty much, people, is enough to shame the ever loving you know what out of you, and it did to me. Uh, but as I've talked about so many times on this channel, we get to choose how we process things. So for a period of time, I sat in my room feeling massively ashamed of who I was as a person, and I opted to channel that shame into something better. And as I was watching the Chris Nitic story, I thought to myself, this is something that the crew of the lifeboat needs to hear about. Because if someone with the unique challenges that this man had can set a goal and take care of it, how easy should it be? How easy should it be for us to decide to live our best lives? How easy is it for us to say, I'm going to get 1% better? I'm going to get 1% kinder. I'm going to get 1% more dedicated. I'm going to get 1% what? What is it in your life that you need 1% more of every single day? Is it organization? Is it love? Is it respect? Is it respect in yourself? Is it forgiveness? Tell you what, every day I get 15 emails from people that tell me that they cannot forgive themselves. I think the whole cannot thing has really got to stop. You know, people, it's got to stop. At 15 miles, when his dad went out to talk, I'm sorry, 20 miles, when his dad went out to talk to him and hugged him, he said, I don't want to do this anymore. And his dad said, you do. You know, this was your dream. You want to do this. And it took him about 40 seconds for this kid with Down syndrome to get back onto what his dream was. So when you feel like going to the liquor store, or you feel like calling the dope man, or you just feel that being sober is really too much, reach out to somebody here. Because I bet you it doesn't even take 45 seconds to get your fecal matter together and stop the process of slipping and relapsing. The only reason that people relapse is because they do it quietly. The only reason that people use again is because they do it in secret. If you reach out to anybody on this boat and tell them you're getting ready to use, you're not going to use. You're not. That's just who this crew is. The crew of this boat isn't going to let that happen. If they can't talk you out of what you're about to do, I bet you they get me on the horn, right? Or Mark, or anybody else that you all have demonstrated a willingness to listen to, right? It's just a matter of saying, I'm never going to quit this quitting process. I'm not going to give in. You know, we allow this challenge of ours to become a monster. We allow this challenge of ours to take on some kind of an identity that is so much larger than it really is, right? I mean, honestly, I hear people every day. If you knew the number of emails I get, people, you know, we have a lot of people that watch this channel who don't ever comment. You know, we got a great group of people that comment all the time. But of the soon to be 1,800 crew members on this boat, there are hundreds of them that just watch this channel and don't say much. But I get emails from these people every day, and I'm not picking on anybody because I was that guy for so long. But they say things like, I just can't stop. I just can't quit, right? Words mean things. I promise you, there's a reason that you do positive affirmations. There's a reason that rote learning works. Because if you continue to repeat the same thing over and over and over again, it becomes a fact. And if you say, well, I just can't quit, I just can't quit, guess what? You'll be right. There is a very old cliche that whether you say you can or you can't, you're right. Guaranteed. If you say I can do this, oh, you will. If you say I can't do this, you won't. It's that simple. It sounds crazy, but it is that simple. The words that come out of your mouth dictate the emotions that you feel. Those emotions dictate exactly what you do with yourself. This needs to be something that is so cut and clear and just exactly what it is. People, we're just turning a page. We're not asking you to run a marathon after you swim 2 miles and bike 112. The determination to make your body do that, I assure you, will be far more difficult than the determination that it takes to say, I'm not going to do drugs again. I'm not going to drink again. The incredible thing is this, people. Chris Nitic gets to tell the world for as long as he lives that he's an Iron Man. That's a really cool thing. Imagine, especially for someone with his unique challenges in life, to be able to proclaim himself an Iron Man is just awesome. But I'm telling you right now, to sit here in front of this camera with the life that I've led and say, I'm sober, it feels the same way. It feels the same way. Every day that I get up and I face the world, and I don't need to get high in order to face the world, I feel like an Iron Man. I feel like I'm partying. Do you understand? I'm partying. People, if you knew how many times this live feed ends and Mark and I sit here for an extra half an hour talking about just how happy we are in life. For real. There was not a time in my life, people, that I could sit and talk about how happy I was. That's crazy, isn't it? But that's the truth. For the longest time in my life, I bought happiness by the gram. It's no way to live. If you're living by buying happiness by the bottle, by the gram, by whatever, right? The next bet, the next video of two people having sex, whatever it is that you're doing as a coping mechanism for life, I promise you, when you can put that to bed and stick it in the rear view mirror where it belongs, you're going to feel like an Iron Man. You are. And, I talk about putting different tools in the toolbox. You have to put a whole set of tools into this toolbox that we carry around when we're getting sober. People, I'm not saying that quitting is going to be a joke. It's not. It's going to be a challenge that you live with for the rest of your life. It's going, and depending on what you're quitting, I am 6 years out, and there are days I have physical withdrawal. People may not believe that, but when your drug of choice was opiates, your body will just start hurting you. And the amazing thing, and most people who are recovering from that, they'll back this up. But on days that I'm really struggling mentally, that's when my knees will start giving me hell. That's when the shoulders that I had surgeries on will start giving me hell. My C6 vertebrae, which I broke twice, will start going off. I had 4 Achilles tendon surgeries on my right ankle. It will go nuts. I had a compound fracture of my left wrist. I had every bone in my right hand replaced. I had a very bad run that led me down the road that turned me into a pain pill addict and then a heroin addict. But that's the physical withdrawal I'm talking about. When I'm not in a good place mentally, my body will go, oh, we got him. Now let's send a little pain down the pike and see what happens. And that's something that I'm going to live with forever. But I'll tell you what, if you put tools in the toolbox that you can go to when those things happen, the biggest tool we got, the 5-pound maul that we have, is the lifeboat. Coming here in the comment section or going over to Facebook and just saying, I need help. I need to talk to somebody. That's the biggest tool that you got. But I'm telling you right now, people, when I start getting complacent, you want to know one of the tools I got? A 12-minute video of watching Chris Nitic finish that triathlon. Seriously, I start feeling sorry for Tommy Scoville. I need to look at Chris Nitic because I ain't got a leg to stand on if I want to feel sorry for my blessed carcass. For real. Every time something comes up, people, and it brings out an emotion, one powerful enough to put tears in your eyes, right? That's a tool. I promise you that's a tool. And it's something that you can go back to again and again and again. I am blessed that while I was in prison, My brother Johnny was running a YouTube channel. Most of you know that. You've seen him on here for interviews, and a lot of you probably subscribe to his channel. But for a couple of years, my father made videos with my brother. And there was a whole segment that they used to do where they would eat cheese. And people, when I'm really hurting, I will go and watch my dad on video. And the thought of letting him down, the thought of relapsing and what that would have done to him, I believe he can see me, people. I really do. Whether you don't have to believe that, but I do. And I'm never going to let that man see me put a needle in my arm. When he was on this earth, I could hide. I could hide. But I remember when my dad first passed away, and I was talking to Johnny on the telephone, and everybody in my family panicked when my dad died because, obviously, the biggest fear was Tommy's going to relapse. There's no way he gets through this without dope. And I remember saying to my brother that, honestly, with everything bad that was happening to me, I hadn't even thought about it. I really hadn't. I thought, boy, I'd like to, but the actual, man, I could do this just to get through never came to mind. And when he said, why? I said, because I can't hide anymore. I can't. Now I feel like if I'm hiding in the bathroom, he can still see what I'm doing. And it was really funny, people. It's actually a laugh out of this because my brother said to me, do you really think that, that Papa can look down and see us? And I said, I kind of do. And he goes, man, that makes me really uncomfortable. And I said, why? He goes, just the idea that he can see everything. Jesus is one thing, but Dad? And people, I can't tell you how hard I laughed, but it's just another tool in my toolkit. And every day, people, every day that I come here and I meet you people, and you guys send me emails, if you knew how many comments have gone into my toolkit, if you knew how many emails and how many direct messages have gone directly into my toolkit, I'm not even kidding you. I have a file, right, that I can go to on the computer when I need to be motivated, of people who said the most beautiful things. I read one of them on the air, I think it was last week, what the woman said. She's losing her mom, but she was thankful for two reasons: that somebody from the lifeboat had reached out to her during this time of need, and the fact that she's sober as her mom is getting ready to end this chapter of her life. People, I will read that thing 200,000 times before I leave this planet. It's one more tool in the toolkit that I have to beat this fight, to conquer my addiction, which I fight every day. You all are going to fight it every day. The good news is that now I put a whole lot less effort in to fight it than I did at 6 months, right? Or at 3 months, or at a week. If you are just quitting in a week, yesterday, and even on today's live feed, we had people chiming in and telling us exactly how long they had been sober. Seventh Son could tell you down to the minute. And that's usually the case when you're first starting back to, you got up and dusted yourself off. I think he told us, he was closing in on 14 days and he had it down to the minute. Well, those first days are tough. I promise you, with every day that goes by, it gets easier. And, Mark isn't just a partner of mine. He's an inspiration. We have the same drug of choice. And he's at 10 years, people. It's a decade, right? The best part of that story is not only that I can lean on him, but I'm never going to catch up to him. There's not a doubt in my mind I will never catch up to Mark, which is one of the coolest things in the world that you can say about one of your friends. The beautiful thing is that when someone is solid and they're in recovery and they're living the life the way that you're supposed to, you're never going to catch up. But I'm not going to fall behind either. The gap between us and our sobriety will remain constant until I leave this planet. So, hey, everybody, I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and you are on the lifeboat. People, this is a good one, man. This is a big one. I'm really enjoyed this segment that we're doing. Before we get rolling, I want to thank everybody that's been keeping Journey and her husband in their thoughts and prayers. Obviously, their family's going through, some tough times after this accident. It was fairly serious. Journey's husband cut an artery, and he also damaged his leg pretty good. He's doing surgery today. If we keep them in our thoughts and our prayers, if we could also keep thoughts and prayers going for Deja as well. She's still working through some things, and we just want to keep her in our thoughts. But people, this is a segment that, boy, I get more ink on this. There are more people that write to me concerning this particular segment. And what we're doing, as you know, is we've been following a gentleman that is working through sobriety and having the courage and just the heart to share this with the world as he's doing it. basically for no other reason than knowing that this is something that's going to help people, and it already has. The number of people who have stepped up to the plate because of the first interview that I did with Joe Birdwell, it's really awesome of him to come back on here. And I know the man's working hard, and we're sort of tapping him right after work, but it's a great opportunity for people that are watching what sobriety means to have an opportunity to see somebody that's actually working through it. So, uh, Joe, we got a lot of new people on the boat. For the people that are here and may not have seen although I did tell everybody to, but for those people that didn't double back and watch the first interview, if you could just give us a brief history of what the last 17 years was. You don't have to do the whole show that we did last time. But if you could just bring us up to speed on that, and then we'll sort of get where we're at today.
Yeah. I was 5 years old, like I said, and seeing that the cop and the teacher come out there with that case for drug awareness and having all these different samples of drugs, and the first time I realized that that marijuana was illegal, and that's pretty much where it started, and it just led to when I got to 14, just started doing drugs with my parents and my brothers and my aunts and my uncles and just everyone in my family, and everybody just enabling everybody, and it's pretty much no way out. I got to a point, time flies, I guess, when you're high.
Yeah.
But I got to a point to where I tried everything just to quit, and I just gave up. I mean, I just told myself, I guess I'm just gonna be stuck like this forever, like there's no hope for me, and I was pretty much hopeless, and I got to a point where I cried out to God and said, if I know he didn't make me like this. He made the heavens and the earth and the stars and everything. I mean, surely he didn't make me to be this way, and then one thing led to another, and I came across a lifeboat, and just, I had came across it before, but I never really clicked on me until I seen that part on there where writing the goodbye letter, and that really caught my attention, and doing that, I had to go back and examine myself, I guess you could say, and and really, it was kind of a hard letter. I mean, to really go back and to do that, to kind of treat it like it was my best friend, and it wasn't my best friend, but it's just one step at a time. I mean, and next thing you know, I'm 32 days sober, and I mean, I can't believe it. It's just it's just a miracle. I mean, it hasn't been easy. I mean, I'm not gonna say that it's been all rainbows and butterflies because it hasn't. I mean, every day I just gotta take it step by step and day by day.
Absolutely. Well, and when we had you on the last time, I think you were 7 days in, so it was really sort of at the start of everything that you were doing. And at the time, we had talked about it, especially after the interview, that there's sort of a honeymoon period when you first get off of any substance, where once you get that realization that you're all in, you ride that wave of everything is perfect. And it's like you said, it isn't easy. So here we are at day 32. What has been the biggest challenges you're facing so far with sobriety?
Well, besides the urge to just to want to use, I mean, one of the hardest parts to me is, I mean, I'm not. God gave me a chance to kind of look at me with a different perspective through other people's eyes. Not just the way I see myself, but the way my wife see me, the way my kids see me, the way anybody looks at me. Kind of on the outside looking in, and that's one of the hardest parts, to realize the kind of person that I was. That I've been all my life, and it's really hard to to see yourself through someone's eyes sometimes, because you get a different perspective. And I mean, when you're on that drug, you don't really have a lot of a conscience. I mean, you're doing wrong things, but it's like you're just selfish pretty much. You want to just get high, and you do whatever it takes to do that. I mean, that's your number one priority, and you spend your time, your money, your effort, everything. And it's just a bad deal. I mean, other than that, it's just I've had to occupy myself with different things. Like instead of getting high, I'm trying to do other things. I'm looking into getting back into school. Looking in just anything I can do. I tune in the boat anytime I can. I tune into sermons on the internet all throughout the day. Just anything that I could find to keep my mind occupied. Because if not, you know, and I got to keep my hands and, keep my hands in control too. I mean, it's kind of like this. I played the piano and learned these hard songs, when I was a kid. And if I think about it while I'm trying to play them and I watch my hands, I can't play them. I mess them up every time. But if I just let my hands go, it, it'll play songs just perfect. And it's like you kind of train your flesh. You train your flesh to do it. It kind of has a mind of its own. And you just, I think our biggest battle is ourselves. It's hard. If we can keep ourselves in check, our thoughts. I mean, I don't know. It's step by
No,
step, day by day.
that's beautiful, man. That really is. We talk all the time on the boat, and when you're sitting here in front of the camera and you're talking to people about making points of contact and creating new things that you're doing. It's one thing for me to sit here and talk about it, but to hear you come on and say, here are the things that I'm doing, because that's exactly, I mean, you're really taking the things that we talk about every day and you're putting them into practice as a way to build your life. I heard you say right before we came on the air that you had begun to start working out again,
Yeah.
and as that was in answer to the struggle of sleeping. And I'll tell you, Joe, everybody who is going through where you're at right now, I've never met anybody that said, boy, I quit and sleep was just like that. We were right back to where I was. I've never met anybody that wasn't a struggle with. So sleep's been tough, huh?
Yeah, it has been tough. Uh, I mean, it's like I can go to sleep. My mind goes to sleep, but I'm dreaming the whole time, and it's like my body wants to act out the dreams. I mean, I throw myself out of bed and hit the wall and hit the floor. I'll throw swings and kicks, and it's just a matter of getting. I think when your brain is used to releasing so much dopamine, that, and then you stop using the drug, it's trying to replace that with something. I mean, I don't. I mean, it's just trying to rewire itself, I guess. I mean, it's the only
Yep.
thing I can think of. And I'm trying to study and I want to study it and know the chemistry and everything of it. Just anything I can to help myself, and to help anybody else, because I don't wish that on my worst enemy. I wouldn't
Well,
wish that on my worst enemy.
and coming here and doing this, Joe, is a huge thing. I mean, to come on here and talk about the struggles, I promise you, the number of people that this is helping is amazing. And I'll tell you, having done a little bit of study on this, chemical dreams affect everybody that quits. But your substance, what you quit, is really unique in that, we talk all the time about, this gets you high, and then you have the reward center and you have all of those things. Well, your drug works on the reward center, right? It's the same chemicals that it's just overloading. So when you're on meth and you're living that way, when you sleep, you do not sleep like a normal person. That delta, REM stage of sleep, the meth addict might get that every 4 or 5 days. They might get it every 2 weeks. So the rest of the time, you're really just resting your body. You're not resting your mind. So
Yeah.
you're working on 17 years. I'm not laughing, but I mean you're working on 17 years of your mind being wide awake. So the fact that you're going through chemical dreams does not surprise me. But I think it's a great step. Working out is a good one. And again, that's another point of contact. As we talked about last night on the show with programming, when you start to put together an actual program of the things that you're doing, and I know you're doing them because I get the emails and I get the texts, and I can watch you redoing your life, and it's exciting, Joe. It really is for everybody here. It's so exciting to watch you do this.
If I was to if I had any words to say that would help anybody out there, I mean, I would just have to tell them, there is hope, there is hope, there is a way, God makes a way where there ain't no ways, and He makes the impossible possible, and He does love you, and that there is a way, you just got to take that first step. You take that first step, and He'll help you with the rest. I mean, and I'm not pushing religion or anything like that on anybody. I know how it is on the boat, but we're all in the same boat, and for me, it was my Jesus, that led me to the boat. I even come across a sermon in church the other day that was talking about the boat, and it just blew my mind. Just I mean, it's just crazy, but yeah, there is hope. And if I can be helped, anybody can be helped. I mean, because I'm a knucklehead. I mean, I always have been. I'm the worst. you know. But I'm glad that I came across the boat. You know, it helps with having people there with accountability and just people that know your situation and can relate to you. You know, so people you can be honest to. I mean, that's the whole thing.
Well,
That
and
pays, you know.
yeah, I respect that honesty too, to come on here and talk about this is something. And what, you probably aren't seeing this as it's scrolling by, but you got people saying things like you're the light of this boat. And you got people saying that you're an inspiration. And I'll tell you something, man, you are. It really is the absolute truth. I think I told you this earlier, but my mom tunes in from time to time. I'd love to say she watches everyone, but she doesn't. But she's definitely not missing this because you really had an effect on my mom. And she said what really came across was just how positive you are. And I know that going through and doing what we do, it's a struggle, man. But your attitude, the whole attitude of gratitude thing is something that is so real. And we talk all the time about the difference between just being not using and rebuilding a life. And man, I'm inspired every day by the attitude you bring into the boat and the attitude you got in life. The videos, people, if you haven't gone over to his channel and check it out, please go over and check out Joe's channel. The videos that he gets up there. I mean, you want to just feel good, you can go to this channel, and I promise you, there's nothing you're going to see there that isn't going to make you feel better than when you started. And yeah, man, you're an inspiration. You really are to me. Much less to all the people that are watching this. So going forward, man, any fears, or you feel like you're in this is pretty strong?
I'm in this pretty strong. But the main thing is, like I said, I please myself enough. I've been selfish enough throughout my life. I think my wife and my kids deserve all of me. And most of all, like I said, I mean, I'm not pushing religion, but the one thing that the burden that I always have carried is I want to please God. I want to be pleasing to Him. And I haven't ever been able to feel that way, but you know, I'm feeling like that. That I start to feel like that He might be looking. He can see me in a different way. And that just that's the greatest reward that I could ask for. I mean, to I want my testimony to be true. I want to be the real deal, not the person that stands up there and gives a fake testimony. And I don't want to wear the mask. I want to be the page three Joe. I've been paying attention. And I've been writing the page one and the page two. I'm ready to live page three and not look back. And made me a prayer list of all the different things I'm going to pray for, and and just watch them come to pass. Um, I just praise God for you and Mark and the boat, man, and everything you do. I believe in you and your mission, and I think God, I think you're everyone has a purpose, and I think you're serving your purpose, and just you hang in there with your school and everything's going to work out. You might have to be a full-time captain, but
Yeah.
you better get ready.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I really do. And yeah, it's good to know that you're solid in it, and you really are. I can't remember doing a video that I didn't see in the comment section. Honestly, I cannot remember one. And I know there were times you say, "Man, I'm fading out," and I know that that's going to be something you
Yeah.
struggle with, man.
Yeah.
But what's awesome is that you talk about it. What's awesome is that you're not, so many people just sort of crawl into themselves, and the fact that you're willing to say, hey, here's where I'm struggling. And, the sleep is going to be a thing. It really is. But working out and doing the things you're doing is, you said you went to church and you heard something about the boat. Church, a different experience when you're sober, isn't it?
Oh yeah. It's a real deal. You can actually feel something, you could, instead of just going through the motions, that's not something I like doing, is just going through the motions. And I've done it for years and got me nowhere. One of the things I fear is when I go to sleep and I start dreaming that I'm using again. That's one thing when I dream that, because I have dreamed it a lot in the last 32 days. I dream that I'm looking for a bag, or that I'm, but I wake up and I'm just thanking God that it's a dream, because, that's not what, I just want to be as far away from it as I can.
That is, first of all, it is super, super normal. Anybody, and I mean anybody, I can see the bobble right now going like this, right? Because everybody that has gotten sober, the chemical dreams, everybody does this. And you wake up going, oh my God, I relapsed. And then you lay in bed and go, oh, thank God it was a dream. I still do that. And I'm 6 years and change into it. Still happens to me all the time.
You know,
You
you
know,
know what's funny is I'm not saying that you're not going to be tempted. Ever since this has started, I've gotten text messages and I've had to not answer calls from the dope man, even though Mexico was trying to call me. I see the number from Mexico, like, oh, better not answer that one. You know, I mean, you just got to make a choice and stick with it. I mean, you know, temptation is going to be there. You just got to be strong enough to just say no, you know, I mean, and that's the hardest part, you know, just because, but you can do it, you know what I mean? If once you make your mind up, you know, that's all it is. I mean, it's, you got to be strong enough, headstrong, and in your heart to just say no, you know, I mean, but, but other than that, I'm good. I mean, I'm
well, you
hanging
shoved
in there.
every chip into the center of the table. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I mean, you're not phoning this in, man. It's pretty obvious to everybody involved that that you're definitely all in on this. And yeah, don't let the just a quick story, because there, I know at least two or three people in the comment section are going to relate to this. But I was in prison, you know that, and as I got close to the gate, right after doing a lot of time, as I got close to the gate, I used to have dreams that I was on the street, right? But I had always just escaped. It was never that I was free. It was always that I had just escaped. And the police would be behind me, and I'd go, oh God, I'm going back. And I would wake up in a prison cell and go, oh, thank the Lord. Like, look around and go, I'm still in here. Thank God it wasn't one of those things. But
Yeah.
the brain plays some pretty amazing tricks with you. You know, you're gonna wrestle with the chemical dreams for a while. And there's actually a few books that are literally about nothing but chemical dreams, because there are some things that you can do to sort of. I've come to the point now where when I start having chemical dreams, and maybe it's just how long I've been doing it, but I'll go, man, I ain't getting high. Like, my brain snaps in the dream, like, man, ain't no way I'm getting high, and the next thing you know, I'm waking up and sort of giggling about it. But yeah, that one's gonna plague you, and the sleep thing is gonna plague you. But on the day to day, other than people reaching out to you, you keep temptation in check, right?
Yeah. And I got a good job, you know. I can't complain about that. I got to get up at 5 a.m. I mean 4 a.m. to get to work by 5 a.m. And luckily I get to go make some rounds, and then I go back to my office and I get to kind of doze off. I hate to say it, but I'll doze off for about an hour or two. That's the only thing helping me, you know. And believe it or not, I haven't missed a day of work since I've stopped using it. I haven't missed a day of work. Before that, I was calling in at least probably 3 or 4 times, a month, probably at least one. I mean, I always called in for something. I hadn't missed a day of work since I quit. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
that's your third page Joe, man. Third page
Yeah.
Joe doesn't miss work.
Yeah.
Yep. It really is amazing when you start to see the transformation in your own life, where you're like, man, I'm just not that dude anymore.
Yeah.
It's like you said, you were talking about, going to church and sort of, being a phony. And I did it for 2.5 decades, man. And I've gotten more out of church since being sober than I did in the 2.5 decades before then. And it's everything. I mean, church is something that jumps out at me because I too am a pretty religious guy, but everything that I do, I mean, there's not a day that goes by that something doesn't happen where I go, man, if I was wasted, I would not have appreciated this in the slightest. Sunrises, sunsets, everything are just different.
Yeah. You appreciate the beauty of what, life even. I mean, life is fragile, man. We don't realize how fragile our lives are until we stop for a minute in this slow gear, and examine it, you know what I mean? Because, man, we're only a heartbeat away from death at all times, you know what I mean? And man, I'm just glad that I finally opened my eyes. Or
We are
God
too,
opened my
man.
eyes. Yeah.
How about the wife? The last
Wife's
time
hanging in there.
the last
hanging
time
in
you
there.
were on, she was.
She sees
You
me
were
on the
talking
boat
about.
every night. I'm logging onto the boat every night. She's asking me questions. What are you doing? What are you watching? Oh, I'm on the live feed, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's understanding. She's all down with it as long as it's helping. She's cool with it. We go and working out together every night, so we're
Oh, nice. See,
yeah.
points and new points of connections, man. Making new memories.
She's had to deal with a lot, Tommy. She just had to
I
deal with a
know it.
lot. And the whole time that I was doing all this, she was there at church praying for me. That somebody's always praying for you somewhere. You know what I mean?
Oh
There
yeah.
has to be. And that's what it was. She's there praying for. I bet she prayed for me for 10 years or more. Every day, just faithful going to church. And finally, she's getting to. She got to finally see that God bring me to church. And I mean, I love her. I
Yeah.
couldn't find no one else like her. So she puts up with
No,
my crap.
you're blessed. There's no question. I'm imagining, other than the fact that you probably thrash around pretty good at sleep time, you're probably pretty happy with page 3.
He's about ready to kick me to the couch, man, already.
Yeah, I went through that. When when I got out of prison the last time. I got sober. I relapsed, but I was sober when I first got out, and I was married to I was a newlywed, and this poor woman, I scared the hell out of this woman. I can't tell you how many times. I did a show where I talked about watching someone die in prison, get kicked to death, and I used to sit up in bed and scream. And this was something that about the third time it happened, she said to me, "I don't know that I could do this." And same thing as you. I would end up on the floor, or I would end up, reaching out and grabbing a handful of whatever she was wearing, because you really don't know what's going on.
It's exactly and it's, I mean, it's the last few 30 days, or, 30, actually been 32 days. But I mean, every night, it seems like almost every night she's having to deal with it, I mean, and it's getting to where she's just worn out herself, I mean, but when we started working out, it seems to be helping a little bit, and I'm just trying anything I can, so just for her not to kick me out of my bed, because I don't want to be kicked out of my bed.
Working out, I promise you, every counselor at any rehab in the country is going to tell you that anything that you can do to start creating normal endorphin dumps in your body, and working out is a huge one. Basically, you're doing everything right. I promise you are. And it's one of those things where here you are at day 32. When we do the next one of these, I promise you it's going to be a different interview, because every day that you keep fighting the good fight, that those sleep patterns are going to start mellowing out a little bit. The chemical dreams they're going to happen for years, but they're not going to happen as often. I mean, I remember when I first quit, it was literally every night. And again, like you said, if I wasn't in the process of trying to use, I was chasing it. I was in town looking for the dope man, or doing whatever, and it's your brain playing tricks with you. It really is. After 17 years that your brain is so used to you throwing a switch to release all of those chemicals that you just got to fight it.
My brothers told me not too long ago that if I quit, they, I was the reason why they were using, but they're still using, because I'm their older brother and this and that, and that really, it really hurt me when they said that to me. And my little brother got on his way to prison, man. I mean, he was looking at 15 years or more. And since this has happened, I prayed for him, and God opened the door for him to get out of jail, before he had to go. I mean, he's at home right now, and I haven't even seen his face since he's gotten out. I haven't been able to go over there and see his face, even, because I don't want to risk, I got to get stronger before it's hard to say that I got to separate myself from my own family, but I do. I mean, I have had to, you know what I mean? Because everybody enables everybody, and when I get strong enough that I feel like I'm strong enough to go around on my, I will. But until then, I'm going to stay home. I mean, that's all I can do. I mean,
I hope everybody on the boat, right? Everybody on the boat just heard that. I get emails every day from people that say, you expect me to turn my back on my best friend? No, I don't. I just expect you to stay away from him until you're strong enough to be near him. And people, please tell me you just heard what Joe said, right? Somebody throw up a 5x5 that you just heard that. Because when you go all in, people, like we talked about last night, the difference between hedging your bet, the difference between dipping your toe in the water of sobriety, which I promise you is never going to work. You got to shove every chip in the middle of the table. And if it means avoiding people that you love more than life itself, you got to do that, because that's putting the oxygen mask on your face before you put it on somebody else's. And yeah, man, my hat is off to you in 15 different ways. I would pull up the trophy and hand it to you, but with what I'm wearing, it will disappear into the background of this boat, because I live on a magic boat, and it's liable to disappear pretty quick if I pull it up. But my hat is off, man. I can't even begin to tell you just how proud I am, and I know that, like I've said before, man, whether you like it or not, you kind of have become the face of the boat. What you're doing is brave as hell. To fight the good fight is hard. To do it with a whole crew of about 1,800 people watching is something else. And the fact that you've been courageous enough to do it, I'm telling you, the butterfly effect, right? That Just the smallest little things that affect so many people. I'm telling you right now, Joe, the number of people that have been affected by your story and are going to continue to be affected by your story. I know your accountability is thick because we lay it on you. We probably put more accountability on you than any person in history, but the number of people that you're helping. And, here's the thing, again, we're not a religious channel, but if you knew the number of people who have said to me, I mean, truthfully, just inspired to say, I'm really curious about this cat's religion. Because when you see somebody that you can't fake real, right? There's no way to fake the genuine article. And when you come on here, you're a happy cat and you've got a ton of stuff that you're dealing with. You're honest and open about it, but you got a smile on your face the whole damn time, right? And there are a lot of people on this boat and a lot of people on this planet that long for exactly what you got. And that's the fact that you're here and you're doing this is I can't thank you enough. And you can see my partner, right? Poor guy. You know what I mean? He's in the process of breaking his neck on the other side of the glass because, we talk about you a lot, man. Your ears are probably always burning, but it's just such an amazing thing that not only you're fighting a good fight, but you're doing it with the entire world watching. And that's, I'm proud of you and I consider you a brother, but I really, I can't thank you enough for how many people you're helping. I can come on here and talk about it till I'm blue in the face, bro. But after 6 years, no one's seeing it. They're hearing it. But when you come on here and you do it, and I should probably say this real quickly too, people, that the idea to have you on was Mark, right? The way I had done the interviews had always been, boy, if I can get people that have got a ton of sobriety, then they can come on here and they can sort of, tell people what's going on. And Mark had the foresight to say, boy, if we let them watch the process, and we just really picked a winner because obviously, people stumble and that's part of the process. But we've picked a thoroughbred because you're not just doing this, but you're all in. I'm so happy you said that about your family. It's tough. I know it is, man. That takes more discipline than anything else you're doing. In my opinion, it really does. But that's all in right there, man.
If I can say anything, just quit looking in the rearview mirror. Quit looking at tomorrow, worried about tomorrow. Just quit counting the days. Quit counting the days of sobriety. Just live for the day. That's it. Day by day, step by step. Before you know it, you're gonna look back. It's gonna be so far gone that you can't remember her face.
Yeah.
Just you can do it, man. That's all I can say. Just keep going day by day. That's what's helping me. I can't, that's the only thing I know to say is yesterday's gone and tomorrow's not promised to you. So
that's it. So, and what we're going to do for the last 15 minutes is going to be a little different. We're going to, I got one thing to say before I do, but I'm going to invite on, who, and then we're going to allow, some of the people on the boat. There may be a question or two for you, man. And I know that there are a lot of people that are pretty invested in this, so there may be a question or two. But before I hand this over to my partner, people, the one thing I need to tell you, we put up another point of contact up here for people. If you find yourself wanting to hurt yourself, right? We're not doctors here, right? We're all addicts and we're all in the same boat. But if you find yourself really, feeling like hurting yourself, we've got a suicide prevention hotline up there. Please dial that number. Those people care. They're a great, great group of people that will bend over backwards. Not that we won't, but there's things that, that get far beyond getting sober. And if you're feeling like doing something like solving a temporary problem with a permanent solution, please pick up the phone and dial that number because that's, we want everybody here for the long haul. So that's up there. Please make sure you guys take a look at that. And people, today we're going to be talking about something that affects every single person on the planet and most assuredly affects every single person on the lifeboat. We're talking about loss. And loss comes in a lot of different shapes, a lot of different sizes. The one that jumps out at you when you first hear the word loss is usually someone passing away. Obviously, that's the very top of the food chain. That's the pinnacle of loss. But as I said, it comes in a lot of different shapes and sizes. As we come into the holiday season, there are going to be individuals who are experiencing their first holiday without a loved one. There are going to be, wives who don't have their, their husbands and husbands that don't have their wives and people that don't have their parents. And This is going to be the first Christmas that I have spent on, on the planet that my dad is not going to be here for. And that's, this is the reality of all of these seasons. Everybody is always dealing with the first. And, that's part of, the process of being a person. Nobody gets off the planet alive, right? And that means that, this is something everybody has to deal with, good, bad, or indifferent. It's what happens. However, for those of us on the boat, for those of us who have at one time or another been, had our lives dictated by a substance or a habit, loss is a much more difficult thing to cope with. We've talked many times on the boat about the stunted emotional development, right? Everybody has an IQ. It's an intelligent quotient, right? Your IQ is a score. Normally, somebody's going to be somewhere in the high 90s, to say 115, 120. You got people in that neck of the woods who are fairly normal to intelligent, right in there. Start getting higher than that, you're into genius, and you're into, but really people, all it is judging is how much you can learn. It doesn't say that you know things. It's, think about it in terms of a bathtub. How much water can that bathtub hold? Well, your IQ is basically telling you how much information your brain can hold. You could decide to fill that with absolutely anything. You could fill it with, scientific research, or you could fill it with every Grateful Dead song lyric ever made. It doesn't necessarily make you intelligent. It just means that you have the ability to amass a lot of knowledge in your head. On the flip side, you have what's called an EQ. That is your emotional quotient. And people, you do the same type of thing. For individuals, as we grow and we cope and we deal with different things in life, things like loss, things like love, greed, hate, all of the different emotions, we start to build an emotional quotient. And it's a toolbox that gives you the opportunity, and it gives you the tools needed so that when something comes up, you have the capacity to cope with this and to do it in hopefully a fairly healthy manner. The trouble is that with addiction, that emotional quotient pulls an emergency brake the very second you become an addict. So if you started your drug use at 14 and you continued to use till you were, say, 45, all of the time from 14 to 45, when you would be building that EQ, when you would be filling that toolbox with all of the tools needed to cope, all the tools needed to do what people who aren't addicts do each and every day, which is take in what has happened, think about it, how it affects you, and then honestly use your logic center of your brain to cut a deal with the emotional part of your brain to cope and to deal with loss in any of its forms. So for those of us on the boat, those of us who spent great deals of our lives under the influence of drugs or alcohol, our EQ isn't what it should be. And catching up, people, is a very difficult thing to do. So instead of being, I hate to use the word, but I think I'll have to. So instead of being normal in that, we're like everybody else in the free world, that simply isn't the case. So we have to put into place different practices that people who are not addicts don't have to do. So as we start to deal with loss, before we allow the emotional part of our brain to run rampant and stomp us out, we have to logically think about the things that are coming up. People, I use myself as an example always because it's the only one that I can speak about with intelligence and without feeling like I'm discussing anybody's personal life other than my own. But this Thanksgiving coming up, this Christmas, are going to be the first two holidays, big ones, without my dad. Now, I was born in the month of July, so I had, have to cope with the first birthday, his anniversary, Father's Day. All of those things came up and came and went. And for me, there's a process right before that, day comes where I have to sit down and think about exactly what's going to happen to me, because I know that what's going to happen in the emotional center of my brain isn't normal and it isn't right. And I know that it's going to cause me to not relapse, because I'm to the point in my life where that's not an option for me. But what it's going to cause me to do is start to question an awful lot about how I'm doing the things that I'm doing. And it makes me struggle. It makes me think about things that normally I wouldn't think about. like drugs. And it's never, for most addicts, it's not the thought of, oh boy, would it feel good to get high. It's more of, boy, if I could make this go away. For those of you who have been on the boat long enough, you probably remember the incident with my friend number 5. When number 5 died, I did a video. I talked about it. I very badly wanted to get high. I never once for a split second thought about getting high, but I wanted everybody to know that this is what happens when you get into the grieving process and you start to cope with loss as an addict. That center of your brain is going to go, boom, you know what to do. We'll just make this go away for 8 to 10 hours. Won't that be nice? Right? Just make it go away. And it really starts to try to talk you into doing the wrong thing. And we've talked about this about 1 million times, people. And before I'm done, you will hear it another 1 million times. The reward center of your brain is used to rewarding you for doing something stupid, for doing something not intelligent. So when loss starts to crawl into your life, then your brain starts doing exactly what it should not do, which is encouraging you to go do the wrong thing. People, this is when you have to sit down and you have to logically think about what is happening with your emotions. And the key to this, every time, is to be logical in saying the emotional feelings that are going to creep up inside me right now aren't right. I know that my EQ is not developed the way it's supposed to be. So the feelings and the desires and everything that is about to happen to me is not like it would be for someone who was not an addict. It's going to try to drive me to do something stupid, and I need to override this. I need to not allow emotions to run my life, especially during a time of loss. Now, people, we're talking about death, right? But death is only one form of loss. There are so many other forms of loss that we all struggle with. Divorce is an amazing thing in this country. Really, at this point, more than half of marriages end in divorce. So there are a lot of people who are dealing with the loss of someone that at one point in their lives, they believed they were going to grow old with. Again, this is something that is a difficult thing under the best of circumstances. But being a recovering drug addict, dealing with divorce is a very difficult thing. Maybe more so in some cases than death, because of the fact that whenever there's a divorce, there is blame that is going to be levied out, right? It's just something that we all do. If somebody says to me, Tommy, I know that you and your ex-wife got divorced, before I can even, get the words out of my mouth to say, yes, that happened, my brain is going, yeah, and it's her fault. Make no mistake about it, that was her fault. But as an addict with a really seriously damaged emotional quotient, inevitably I have to take a hard look at that marriage. And if it were not for drugs, I'm quite sure that I would still be married to that woman. So I have to shoulder a large responsibility for that loss, whether I like it or not. That seems to be the truth. And the truth is something that, as addicts can be a very difficult thing to cope with. So as we start getting into the holiday season, this morning I talked about it briefly on this morning's video, where I talked about the difficulty of the holiday season. As an addict, all of the things that didn't go well over the course of the year get exacerbated something fierce from the beginning of November until January the 2nd. I've said this on the air before, but when you're incarcerated, this is the time of year where the suicides happen. Every year, somebody in the prison is going to end up taking their own life. And it's going to happen always at this time of year. People do not let, the emotions get a hold of you and make you start thinking about a permanent solution, to a temporary problem. As I said yesterday, we've got a number up there. You're going to see it scrolling across the bottom of the screen. If you ever start feeling like you're in that zone, people pick up the phone and dial that number. And the people there are going to do what needs to be done, which is talk to you about where you're at. You absolutely can come and talk to people on the lifeboat. However, I'm not a doctor. Mark's not a doctor. We're not shrinks. We talk about drug addiction. But when you start getting to the point where you're talking or seriously contemplating removing yourself from the population, then it's time to call that number. So as these holidays come up, The thing that I want to encourage everybody here to do more than anything else is a twofold assignment. Number one, if you're going through it, if you're really hurting this season, come here and tell somebody about it. We've established over the course of the time that the boat has been the boat that you can come here and talk about anything, and people aren't going to judge you. People aren't going to pick on you or be bullies, right? That's not something that we allow here. So if you come here and you're open, and then the kind of emotional support and help that you're going to need will be available to you. So I encourage everybody to just be honest and open this holiday season. We are the chosen family. Everybody here has decided to be part of this. And the love and support, you guys talk about it every day. Everybody talks about it every day. You know, when people come and find the lifeboat for the first time, they're astounded at just how beautifully you all treat one another. So if you start feeling that, and if you're going through it, please, folks, come to the lifeboat, go over to the Facebook group, but reach out. It's essential. And the second part of this assignment, there are going to be people who are going to be going through it this holiday season who think that, you know what, stiff upper lip is the way to go. You know, I'm just going to get through this, and I don't need to be bothering everybody on the boat with my problems. You know, they're all going through things. People, keep your eyes and your ears open, right? You know, the old expression, you know, your brother's keeper. You know, you are your brother's keeper on the lifeboat. Everybody here is our brothers, and for that matter, our sister's keeper. It is what we do. Now, there are people that view sobriety in a different way, but we don't. We firmly believe here at the Lifeboat that what makes sobriety work in the best of circumstances, when it is working and is doing it correctly, it's the emotional connection to people who feel the same way. It is an emotional connection to people who are all fighting for the same thing, everybody wanting the same goal, and really willing to bend over backwards in order to make sure that that is something everybody here has their best shot at. So as we start getting into the holiday season, please, people, keep your eyes and ears open. If there's somebody that's here every single day, we never miss them. They're on every live feed and they're gone for 3 or 4 of them. Let's find out why. Let's reach out to these people. If you go over to the Facebook page and you put a message up, that alert goes out to everybody. You know, reach out. It's the right thing to do. Hey, where's Tommy? You know, I haven't seen him in 3 or 4 days. What's going on? Does anyone know what's going on with so-and-so? People, that is who we are. Make no mistake. That is who we are. That is who you are. That is what makes us different. So as the holidays start to roll around and loss becomes something that everyone is dealing with, even if it's minute, right? Even if it's the loss of possessions, because as we start going down the food chain, like I said, the top of it is obviously death. And then you start getting things like divorce. But people, how many of us during the course of the time that we have been addicts and living a life that was less than ideal, the number of possessions and things that were important to us that were lost? People, I pawned heirlooms, right? I took things that had been in my family for Lord knows how long and went to pawn shops to borrow money from them so I could get heroin. And those kind of things, those little possessions and things, it always seems to be this time of year that you start thinking about the things that you've lost. You start thinking about the problems that your decisions while you were using have caused. So regardless of what that feeling of loss is, whether it is the absolute pinnacle when you lose someone that you love and care about, or if it's something as minor as, you know, while I was using, I got my car repoed, never feel like coming here and talking about anything is trivial. There's nothing more frustrating to me than when you see people who say things like, well, I didn't want to bother anybody with that. I get emails, right? The last thing I wanted to do is bother you. Bother me? Bother me. Mark, you hearing this? People, this is why we do what we do. The reason that Mark and I are here is because we believe wholeheartedly that you are your brother's keeper, and that if this is one of the few things on the planet, it's one of the only possessions known to man, that the only way to hold on to it right is to give it away, right? This is, you don't guard your sobriety like it's a coin you want to stick in a drawer and come back and see in 15 years. This is one of those things that you want to share with people. And the proof is in the pudding, people. This is not something that we came up with, right? We are using time-tested and true methods. I know I've said it before, but I'll say it again. 2 alcoholics figured this out. Scientists couldn't, doctors couldn't. They went out and looked for the magic pill. There had to be a bullet. There had to be some way to treat addiction, and they literally threw their hands up. People, if you can find an old physician's desk reference, they will tell you it's not curable. There is no treatment. That was their philosophy. I'm talking about people who spent, 20 years going to school so that they could find out what's wrong with the human condition, who said, nope, just keep them away from guns. Don't let them operate heavy machinery. And for the love of everything good, don't let them drive a car. That was the medical community's stance on alcoholism and addiction. And then 2 guys came up with a plan, and the plan was quite simple. One realized that no matter what he tried, he always was going to go to the bottle. There was no way he was going to get through a day without being able to use. He couldn't do it. So he said to his friend, I'll keep you from drinking tomorrow. I might not be able to stop myself, but I can stop you. Of course, Bill W. then agreed that, yeah, all right, I'll keep you sober. And 2 guys who were alcoholics started a revolution that changed the course of history. You talk about the butterfly effect. People, we're not here without those 2. When you see a bumper sticker that says another friend of Bill W., trust and believe you're a friend of Bill W. I made badmouth 12-step programs, but without them, folks, I'm somewhere right now with a needle in my arm. That's the reality. So what we're doing is not new, and it's not a concept that we came up with. I do believe that Mark and I may have come up with a concept that may have improved upon it. I really do believe that what we're doing here on the boat and the ability to tap into this around the clock from wherever you are. There's nobody in this country who knows somebody, honestly, at this day and age that doesn't have a smartphone, right? They're ubiquitous. Everybody on the planet has one. So what we've done is to take a very time-tested, true, proven method and bring it into this century. And in the process of doing that, something very unique happened. You all took ownership of what we wanted to start and build. You made it your own. And not just in the aspect of naming it and of determining what times of day we would do, but people, you determined that this was going to be a live show. And for those people who, if you've spent any time on Facebook, on YouTube, they will tell you that you're not going to build a channel doing the live feed thing. There's a lot of reasons for that. If you're monetizing, people, we're not getting any monetization when someone comes to see a live feed. Who cares, right? It's not what we're doing. We're here to make sure that everybody can communicate with one another. Videos are great. The ones in the morning, we impart good information on that. And you know what, people? I would like to thank all of you for showing up. Those videos are seeing way more views than they were when, back when I did the apology, back when I was sort of phoning it in and just coming in the morning and saying, hey, I'll be on at 6 o'clock tonight. It's good to see you. Okay, since starting to put some content and to start, where we're talking about issues that are important day to day to remain sober, you all started showing up in mass. In fact, right now the views in the morning are up by so much that it's making it worthwhile for us to continue to do it. They're important. They really are. They impart excellent knowledge. If there's something going on with the lifeboat, you all hear about it then. But the problem with it is you can leave a comment, but you sure can't interact. And while I'm talking right now, people, I know what's happening, right? I don't have to look at it, but I know all of you are discussing things with one another and you're there for each other. And that bond, that camaraderie, that family is really what is making this so unique. The going from channel to phenomenon is not something that Mark and I did. It's something that you people are doing, and you're doing it day in, day out. We could not be happier with the direction of the boat. So as we start to move up and start to move into this, as we start to move into the holiday season, it's coming, right? It's the holiday blues. This is not something that is, I'm not telling you anything that is like shocking to any of you, right? You all know that for a lot of people in this country, this is really a tough time of year. And I'm one of them. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, last year there was a honeymoon thing for me because, well, number one, my dad was still, with me, and it was the first holidays that I was spending out of incarceration in a really long time. And in spite of the fact that that C plus math thing, it kept me away from my family in lockdown, I was still walking on sunshine because I was free. But this year is going to be different. It's going to be it's going to be a tough holiday for me. It really is. And I'm here to tell all of you, it's going to be a tough holiday for me. But I promise you this, I'm going to share that with you. And on days where I'm hurting and on days where my brain is telling me to make a really stupid decision, I'm going to practice exactly what I preach. I am going to come to the lifeboat. I'm going to tell people here that I'm hurting, and I'm going to take all of the affection and all of the support that you people give to each other every day. You give so much to me. If you knew how many emails, especially in the last 3 weeks, there's just been this shift. I'm not exactly sure I know how to explain it, but there has been a shift in the lifeboat where I get at a minimum a dozen emails a day from people who just say, "Are you all right? Is everything going good?" And that's humbling more than anything that happens here. I saw Joe Birdwell, put up a donation, and I can't thank you enough. I saw Seventh Son do it. God bless you. That's humbling stuff. But when somebody reaches out and just says, "Are you okay? Is there anything that I can do for you?" As the host of a channel on YouTube, I think that's probably that's the highest form of pay that you're going to get. I mean, that is something that the government can't tax and no one can take away. It really does get you up and get you excited about what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. I'm not, as much as I really want to be here for everybody, it's really wild to know everybody is here for me. I guess that might be one more thing that I didn't see coming. Every couple of videos I say, there's one more thing that I didn't see coming. But truthfully, that is one of them. The level of support that I have received from people on the boat has been nothing short of miraculous, and one of the most humbling things that has ever happened to me. People, we're going to want to open this up here in a few minutes so that we can get as many questions in as possible. And people, please, after I do turn this over to my partner, if you have questions, man, that is the time to fire them at me. I'm not being a jerk. You can send me a question anytime you want. But it would be very efficient if you did it here and in the now, right, where you can have live feedback and we can go back and forth. But before we get to that, there's a couple of things that I would like to cover. First and foremost, another shout out, because I don't think there could possibly be enough of them, to Joe Birdwell for opening up his life to the world. Think about it, people. There's a lot of you on this boat. The majority of you on this boat have a sobriety date, and it's a sobriety date that you went through and you hung through it. You remember how difficult it was? You remember the first couple of months and it's a struggle, right? It was a day to day, sometimes minute to minute. It's a struggle. Now, can you imagine saying to the entire world, "Go ahead and watch. I'll let you check this out"? Boy, I can't. I don't know the intestinal fortitude, the backbone, and the love more than anything. I mean, Joe's not doing this to become famous, I assure you. He's a great guy. And when we talked to him the first time about this, it was beautiful because his response was, "Well, if you think it'll help people," right? If you think it'll help people, boy, is it helping people. I'm telling you, when I woke up this morning, there were 37 emails in my inbox, which is pretty close to standard. I may get some days a little more, some days a little less. But normally, there's 5 or 6 different subject matters that people are talking about. This morning, each and every one of those emails had something to do with last night's interview with Joe. And you guys missed one of the coolest things ever, right? Only my partner and Joe Birdwell happened to catch this. But we had a visitor actually come into the office last night and step through the window on the boat to stick her head in and tell Joe that she watched every single minute of that and just how much she was touched by it. My mom actually was here last night and popped her head in to tell Joe that, and it was just special. It was a very cool thing. So I do want to thank Joe for allowing us to share everything that's going on with everybody here, because that is just absolutely amazing. It really is. People, before I turn this over, a couple of things, and I promise you I'm going to give this to my partner. But if you haven't written a goodbye letter to your drug of choice, if you're new to the boat and you don't know what this is, cruise over and check out the playlist that is titled Goodbye Letters. Shouldn't be hard to find. And it is going to show you how most people have written these goodbye letters to their drug of choice. It is something that really, really, it's essential. It really is, people. Smarter folks than me or my partner came up with this. But almost everyone in the rehab community does this now because it is essential. And if you want your story told, if you're willing to help other people by allowing us to interview you, please reach out to me, send me the goodbye letters. If you are writing one that you do not want shared with the world, but you want me to read it, send it to me right on there, just for your eyes. A lot of people do that. And if you don't want anyone reading it, write it and then keep it for yourself or tear it up. But it is an essential part of turning your life over to a whole new you, to a page 3 you. That is essential. Well, people, let us move on to talk about something that amazingly, I was looking back through the 200 plus videos that I've done, and I don't know how this happened, but we've never discussed anger. Maybe it's just because there's so much darn love on the lifeboat that anger gets shoved to the back seat. But it is one of the driving forces that we all have to deal with, even if you're just a run-of-the-mill human being with no challenges in life. Anger is something that is going to be a big part of what we all have to endure. However, we're not run-of-the-mill people, right? We all know that we've had some struggles. What puts us all in the same boat is that we have all struggled with addiction in one way or another. And whether that addiction was to chemicals or to habits or to anything else, it's something that we all struggle with. And anger becomes not only a trigger for a lot of people, but it becomes one of the biggest stumbling blocks in the world. And today I wanted to discuss anger, and on a couple of different levels, but we'll get into that. First of all, people, when we start looking at the pantheon of different emotions that we have, one of the strongest emotions that we feel is love. We've talked about this. It trumps all other emotions. However, excuse me, anger is one of those emotions that spins off of things like love. The more you love somebody, the more you find anger that can creep up because of that. If you think I'm kidding, anytime somebody takes a shot at someone you love, right? I have a brother who's on YouTube. When you have a family member who's in the public eye, they're going to deal with trolls. They're going to deal with all the other things. Say anything you want about somebody, but when you start saying something about my best friend, or you start saying something about my children, or you start saying something about a brother, that kind of anger that you get from that is usually far more difficult to cope with, right? Now, that's a righteous anger. There is definitely anger in our lives that's justified, right? There's anger in our lives that is just plain ridiculous. You know, people who get angry watching the news, people who get angry at people whose opinions differ from their own. These are ridiculous angers. I think we can all agree on that, correct? We talked yesterday, and we talked on many other live feed about how the powers that be, especially in media, have a vested interest in dividing us into two camps as often as possible. If they can pick an issue that people can fall on one side or the other on, vaccinations, mask mandates, whatever the flavor of the month in terms of dividing people in two different ways, they don't care about the issues. They care about dividing us. And the crazy thing, people, is that they have become very successful in making us angry at people who disagree. Now, I'm here to tell you tonight that that's a choice. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? But it's a choice. Like every other emotion, right? It is a response to something. People talk all the time about how so-and-so made me angry. Nobody makes you anything, right? Unless you literally hand that power and that authority over to someone else. People, I get emails every single day. I get emails from people that love me, that do. And I understand why they're emailing me. They'll email me and say, you know, so-and-so said this about you. And they're doing this because they care. And what has happened is unfortunately, they have allowed that person to make them angry, right? They have allowed that person to make them. Now, I'm bad at a lot of things, people. I am not a guru. I am not an enlightened one. I don't know. I don't do the meditation stuff. And I am as susceptible to all emotions that everybody else on the planet is. You people see me for an hour at a time. And let's be honest, I polish myself up a little bit before I come on here. If I feel like throwing something against the wall, the only person that sees it is Mark. Poor Mark sees me when I'm at my worst. The rest of you don't. But I promise you, people, I am as susceptible, if not more so, to all of the human frailties and emotions that affect us on a day-to-day basis. But I'll tell you something. The one that I've pretty much got licked is allowing someone to make me anything. Now, technology, for whatever reason, maybe it's because it is inanimate, is able to make me angry, like very few things. Technology still rents huge space in my head. Every time I come up short trying to do something, you may have noticed that we put up a couple of new thumbnails. Well, I actually started to play around a little bit with that myself. However, Mark puts the thumbnail up in 2.2 seconds. The first one that I put up last night took me just under an hour and a half. And Mark, does an awful lot. He has multiple channels, and he's always, working, because what Mark does with space weather isn't something that you come on and talk about. It's something that requires research. It's something that requires an awful lot of time. So very oftentimes, Mark is knee deep in doing what he does, and I'll reach out to him, and I want that response in 2.2 seconds, right? And it better be really clear and concise so that I can fix this without any problems at all. Or I'm liable to allow this to make me angry. But people, I don't allow human beings to do that. You may not believe that, but I am telling you the truth. So for those of you who want to help and you want to send me something, the fact is you're letting this cat or anyone else rent a little space in your head. People, the ones that want to throw stones, right? There's a reason. Do you know why that reason is? Because I own a split level duplex in their head. You understand? The people that you're telling me are saying X, Y, or Z, I am living rent free in that person's dome. They're not in mine. So when you say they said such and such and they said it here, I haven't been to that here in months. Don't worry about me. I promise you, on that one, we're okay. But what I want is that you don't allow that to happen from anything. Okay? There are things that are going to make you angry, right? Somebody does something to one of my children. There's no getting around that. That is justifiable anger. It's going to happen. Absolutely. But somebody calls me ugly, or somebody says something about you really think I'm going to allow that to rent space in my head? I'm a guy who spent 2.5 decades sticking needles in my arm as a way to just get through the day. I'm a guy that robbed banks. Do you know how badly you have to let your life get out of control to rob a bank to get high? Okay. When I put all of that in the rearview mirror and successfully turned my life to page 3, one of the things that I concentrated most on was not allowing anyone to make me anything. Now, that goes in every direction too, by the way. I don't let them make me sad. I don't let them make me angry. It really has to be a situation that you need to develop this as a skill. And the easiest way to start that process is to honestly evaluate the feelings as they come into your head. When you start to feel that anger, when you start feeling that, I cannot believe that person, pump the brakes. Just like anything else, take that 10 seconds, right, to get your breathing under control, to tell your brain that we're not really getting ready to get in a fist fight. I don't need to be running from some monster. This is just a little emotional thing. You take a couple of deep breaths and you get it under control, and then let the logic center of your brain override the emotion in your brain. Why am I letting this bother me? How am I letting this individual get to me? More often than not, people, as you develop this skill, you're going to start to reach a level of serenity in your life that is going to be like something that you haven't felt before. I promise you this. People, I'm not telling you that you're not going to get angry. Hit yourself on the thumb with a hammer and look at me and say, life is good, Tommy. This did not bother me in the slightest, right? That's not realistic. There are things always that are going to make people angry. That is normal. Have you ever tried to put one of those stands on the bottom of a Christmas tree? Oh, if you have never tried to put one of those metal things with the little deals that you turn, right, that holds the Christmas tree in theory upright, there are very few things in the world that will make you more frustrated than one of those. Amazingly, people, there was a time last century when those things had three legs. The dumbest concept in history. I think we can all understand that if you're trying to make something solid, normally you would give it four legs, right? Because that would be less likely to tip over. But my entire youth, every single Christmas, I would watch my father put up a Christmas tree, and I would hear language that I didn't hear the remainder of the year. My father would say things that most assuredly were not very Christmas-like. And I remember the day where we were in a hardware store, and my father found a Christmas tree stand with four legs. And it was like the movies. You could hear the music and the lights sort of shine down through the clouds. And my father bought that with a haste like I had not seen before. And we lived in a very rural place in Vermont. So my father did what any logical person would do. He took the three-legged tree stand outside and shot it about 15 times with a 12-gauge shotgun. I'm not being funny. He literally blew this thing around our property until he had a look of contentment on his face that in the 50 years that I was his son, I only saw that look a few times. He was as happy as I had ever seen him. Anger is a very real emotion, and it's something that is very difficult to control. I'm not saying you're going to live a life without anger. What I'm saying is this: don't allow someone else to choose when that anger occurs. Situations are unavoidable, and there are things that are going to happen that are going to make you angry, and they should. It's healthy to get angry, providing it's not something that you allow to run your life, right? However, it's not particularly healthy to let a jackwagon rent space in your dome and make you angry whenever they feel like throwing a switch. Logic can override that. I am here to tell you that that is a fact. And I'll tell you something, people, I have had far more practice, especially of late, than most people can imagine with this particular skill. And Mark has become so much more than a partner to me. He really is. Mark is a brother. We get to, I've said this before, when the live feed ends, it doesn't end, right? When the live feed ends, it just becomes the Mark and Tommy show, and people don't get to be privy to the Mark and Tommy show. But we spend a great deal of time laughing about things that I promise you 2 years ago probably would have been renting space in my head. But those days are over. And I'm telling you, with my brain capacity, right? And with all of the things that I've had that have made a challenge in the thinking department, right? Whole lot of concussions, whole lot of dope, right? All of the things that should make me far more susceptible to emotion and far less likely to lean on logic. If I can laugh at things of that nature, then I'm telling you, you can be a master at it, right? Start to evaluate anger as it comes into the brain. Start to evaluate why you're angry. Because as I said, there is righteous anger. There is anger that is absolutely justifiable. And then there's anger that's just a complete and utter waste of time. And you will find that justifiable anger does not create a cancer of the soul, right? If anger is justified, it comes in, you get angry, you get it out of your system, right? You blow it out, you get mad, you talk through it with people you care about, and you move on. It's the other kinds of anger, the kinds that linger. Because if you allow someone to make you, right? Horrible phrase. But if you allow someone to make you angry, they will continue to do so. Because the kind of people who make people angry thrive on it, right? For a lot of people, it's their freaking drug of choice. If you don't believe that, people, start evaluating the people that you know. Start evaluating people who we used to call them psychic vampires. right? These are the people who just seem to love to get an emotional rise out of somebody. And you can actually watch the smile on their face as they watch this transpire. So if you have psychic vampires in your life, if you have people who like to push your buttons, I did a video a few days ago, and it was from a post that was done by the recently healed Fiona Crispin that talked about allowing somebody into your home. If you have somebody into your home and they badmouth the decor and they break things and they you would never have them back to your house, right? It's just pretty logical stuff. Start thinking about your serenity the same way. Start thinking about your emotional well-being the same way you would that house. So if you got a psychic vampire, if you've got somebody who loves to push your buttons, loves to make you angry, get rid of them. You know, in the post, it said when you kick somebody out of your house for that, you don't have to hate them. You just don't invite them back. Hate's a terrible emotion. We've gone over this. It's not a good one. It's not. It just hits you from the inside out. You can watch it. You ever seen somebody that spent, oh, I don't know, 2 or 3 months just being the angriest person you've ever seen? If you've ever watched that, you can see the look on their face change. Their day to day emotional well being is something that you can look at from a distance. And I mean, you can't take sick satisfaction in that, even if you don't like the person. It's uncomfortable to watch. But people, if you've got somebody who is making you anything, you have two options. You can really try to get to that point where you don't allow those things to happen. You can work on the whole Zen thing. You can really concentrate on, am I allowing my thoughts to be run by the emotion center of my brain, or am I allowing my intellect to handle this? Well, if that becomes an issue, may I make a suggestion? Take the quicker route and get rid of them. Just don't allow this person into your personal space. Don't have them a part of your life. The beautiful thing about you is that you run you, right? What do the kids say? You're the boss of you. There is no one else that is going to determine what you do. Don't allow these people in your life. Just get rid of them. It's really quite a simple process, whether you believe it or not. Most of the time, you don't even have to tell them you're getting rid of them. Just don't take the calls. Don't invite them over. Don't become part of their sphere of influence. It's really a pretty simple concept. So before we call it a day, people, the real key to the anger issue is to be able to identify the kind of anger that you're dealing with. You have to logically evaluate when you get angry, and you know what anger is. There's nobody here that hasn't experienced this today, much less for large sections of our life. We deal with anger, right? What's the first thing that happens? Whether you realize it or not, the first thing that happens, your breathing changes. True story. You get mad, you start breathing different. And that does an amazing thing in your brain. Your brain goes, uh-oh, are we getting ready to get in a fist fight? Your brain is hooked up to your eyes, but the two of them don't communicate very well. So when you get that, when you start breathing different, your brain starts going, uh-oh, we got a fight coming. Or there is a very large bear getting ready to eat me. Because when you go all the way back to when we started to develop all of these things, it was fight or flight, right? I'm either going to swing at this person or I'm going to run like hell because there's a bear getting ready to eat me. You have to tell your brain that that's not going on. So when you start to feel that anger coming on, you take deep breaths, because nobody running from a bear stops to take deep breaths. Nobody getting ready to swing at somebody goes, I need to relax. I need to count to 10. I need to take a deep breath, right? That's not logical. People don't do that before a large fight. Usually they just start swinging. So you tell your brain all is well. You take a few deep breaths, you count to 10, and then evaluate. Why am I angry? I'm angry because somebody did something to my daughter. Well, that's righteous anger, right? This is legit. Now, still, righteous anger comes in. If you can get the righteous anger under control, the first thing that happens? The logic center of the brain says, what can we do? Instead of flinging crap against the wall, right? Punching doors. I've done all these things, all of them. Had surgery on a hand once from an argument where I went to punch a hole in the wall for effect and I found a stud. And that was the end of my right paw. I had to go in and have surgery. Felt like a genius. $3,000 later. Just stupidity. By the way, that was last century. I'm sure today that would cost me 20 grand. But just get your breathing under control, start to evaluate why it is you're angry, and then let the logic center of the brain start doing what it does best, making logical decisions. But if you get into a fist fight in your brain between emotion and logic, do you know which one wins? I promise you, logic never. 100 out of 100 times. If you're just going to let them battle, emotion is going to take over and you're going to do stupid things. But if you take a couple of deep breaths and you start counting to 10 and you get the emotion part to just waver, logic will come in and do what it does best. Why am I letting this guy bother me? Why am I letting this moron get my dander up? This is absolutely ridiculous. Logic starts talking. The next thing you know, seriously, you'll get a little giggle. It's ridiculous. I'm gonna let this guy rent space in my dome. And the next thing you know, people, you're under control. But as crazy as it is, anybody ever take a course on anger? They're out there. Believe it or not, they're out there. But nobody takes them. In the course of your life, how many people literally go and spend 4 hours discussing anger? No, we just live with it. We just assume it's part of the human condition. And I'm telling you, it's not. I mean, you're always going to have it. It's always going to be there. But allowing it to rule your life, that is just not very intelligent. And we live in the days of social media where, as opposed to letting somebody rent space in your head by coming over to your house, oh, we make it so much easier. We carry around this little portable computer, right? And what do we hook up to? Well, we've got Twitter so that people we've never met can rent space in our head, right? And then you've got, Facebook. People, how many times have you gotten angry over something that somebody posted on Facebook that you had no right to get angry at? It happens to me. I have a friend who every time they post anything on Facebook, you would think they just won the lottery. Every time. There has never been a post where there's not something new that cost $1,000 or more in that photo. And that's the only thing he posts. Hey, the wife and I just picked up a new widescreen. You're like, the fourth or fifth time this happens, and he's going to know I'm talking about him, but I don't care. I really don't. His last post was 2 snowmobiles, right? In this part of the world that I live in, riding snowmobiles is a very popular thing. These are really nice snowmobiles. I'll bet you they're 7 or 8 grand a piece. And he just bought 2 of them with a trailer. He didn't mention the price, but he's standing out there like Vanna White, with the prizes they're about to give away on the game show. And I find myself going, man, every single time he posts something, it's about how much money he spent. What? Tommy, what are you doing? Who cares, right? Take a couple of deep breaths. And then again, the little giggle starts rolling in. So I call my friend Jack. I'm like, hey, did you see his post? He's like, good Lord, dude. Does that dude post anything other than what he just bought? Now the 2 of us are laughing about something that could have been renting space in my head because the logic center starts to take over the emotions center and you start letting the better party do what needs to be done. People, I'm here to tell you today that on the lifeboat, we try to concentrate on things that are positive, right? It is the nature of everything that we do. We're going to have very difficult things that come up in our lives. We're drug addicts. We're people who suffer from addiction, alcoholics, drug addicts, compulsive eaters, gamblers, people who watch too much porn. These are all things that are difficult to overcome. And in the process of doing those, the emotion part of your brain gets a little on edge, right? A little on edge. And things that may have made you this unhappy might make you this unhappy for no apparent reason, right? Everybody's had that day where something's already grating on you. And someone says, hey, do you know what time it is? And you want to go, what do I look like, Big Ben? Buy a watch, right? It's not logical. The cat just asks you what time it is. But if you start letting these things crawl into your life and start dictating who you're going to be, people, you're losing the battle. And why is this important? Because when you start talking about triggering, right? Hungry, angry, lonely, tired, promise you angry is in there, right? If you're angry, everything becomes a trigger. You got to learn to get anger under control. And the best place to start is around people that love you, right? For real. Let's not have any anger here. Let's not let anything start to grate on us when we're on the lifeboat, because everybody here cares for everybody else. This really is a place where there's not a lot of room for it. There's not a lot of room for anger on the lifeboat. So hopefully, people, I've given you a lot of stuff to think about, and I didn't make you angry in the process, right? It's hopefully if my subject today angered you in any way, you're going to take a deep breath. You're going to spend 10 seconds wondering why Tommy is making you angry, and we're going to move on to bigger and better things. People, we're talking about All In. For those of you who tune into ESPN, right, and from time to time watch the Texas Hold'em World Series, the World Series of Poker, there's actually a lot of people don't realize that when they play the World Series of Poker, it's not just Texas Hold'em. There are a whole host of different games that you can play at the World Series. You can play Omaha, you can play all of these different games, and then they have a combination of games that is sort of the pinnacle for people who are really poker players. Is where you play something that they call horse, which is Hold'em, Omaha, Raz, and Stud. They play all of them. But people, what makes Hold'em unique and is really what put poker on the map for the world. Everybody knows poker, and people have been playing it for years. But when they started to play Hold'em, something really different happened. Once that got into the public eye, so to speak, it really changed the entire game. And the reason was, normally when you play poker, there's a series of rules concerning how the betting structure goes. And because of that, you're limited with the amount of risk that you can take. When Texas Hold'em became popular, what really made that game something was because if you felt like you had the hand, if you felt like what you were holding was something that was better than most, if you thought it was a winning hand, then you had the ability to force the other players to make a decision for every single thing that they have, right? Everything they have on the table is all going to have to go in that pot. You're making a decision. Is it all, or am I not going to bother? And people, when you start this process of sobriety, you can go and start playing it like you're playing 2-5 Texas Hold'em, or if you're playing a structured game where you're only giving it a little bit, or you're only coming in and you're going to sort of put your foot in the water and you're going to test to see whether or not this is something you want to do. And I'll tell you right now, people, you're going to fail. It's not something that you can do any other way but shoving every single chip you've got into the middle of the table. One of two things will happen in Texas Hold'em. You're going to win it all, right? Or you're going to fall flat on your face. The beautiful thing about cards, very much like the beautiful thing about sobriety, is even if you fall flat on your face, you're guaranteed to get dealt another hand instantly. Providing you're continuing to sit and get back up and do what you do, it's the same thing in sobriety. We have a group of people right now. I jokingly started referring to them as the Fortnite triplets, because all of them sort of came out and started to talk about their sobriety, and all of them sounded off on day 14. So here we had 3 people. One had just started the journey. The other 2 had stumbled and then gotten back up and dusted themselves off. And now people, what they've done is they've shoved all of their chips into the middle of the table. As you get going on this, you really have to ask yourself how much you want sobriety, how much you want a change of life. And the funny thing is, sobriety is a word, right? It really is. The things that it represents means something different to everybody. It can mean not doing drugs, right? That's probably the way most people on the planet define the word sobriety, is not being under the influence of anything. But it is so much more than that. Especially, I mean, sobriety, that's a great word for people who drink occasionally. You're either drinking or you're sober, right? Tonight, I'm going to be sober. I am not going to drink. For someone who is on the same boat that all of us are, for someone who has been addicted, for someone who has allowed chemicals, habits, whatever the case may be, to literally define who you are and to define the decisions that you make, so that your life is being dictated by a substance. For those individuals, there is no option of sober meaning tonight I'm not going to drink. What sober means for those people has to be a complete change of lifestyle, a complete change of everything that you were. As an addict, your focus is always on you. More than anything in the world, your only focus is on you, and nothing else in life is important, right? That's it. You are the center of your own universe, and the only thing that matters is the next shot, the next drink, the next snort, whatever the case may be. That is something that the addict has to change. It's not enough to stop drinking. It's not enough to stop doing drugs. You have to restructure yourself in such a way that everything about you changes. Because if you don't do that, what you end up with is somebody who lives the same lifestyle without chemicals. And we've talked about this before. What it does is it sets you up for a life of misery, truthfully. And we all know people who have quit doing drugs or have quit alcohol and are absolutely miserable. You heard, if you stuck around here long enough, you heard my brother Johnny tell the story of the guy that he went out to dinner with. And he's done it many times. And every time the guy orders a drink, he says, "Give me a Jack and Coke, hold the Jack." Every time this guy gets something to drink, the fact that he can't get it with booze in it is something that is grating on his nerves. It is nails on a chalkboard to this person. And I know who he's talking about. Within 25 to 35 minutes of the night, he's going to point out to you, every single person in the room, what they're drinking, right? Alcohol is still the center of this person's universe. Unfortunately, he doesn't drink it. If the center of your universe is still going to be your drug of choice or your bad habit of choice, what's the point of getting rid of it? I mean, at least the alcoholic is happy for a period of time each day. The dry drunk is miserable all the time. So, in order to live a life that is going to be your best life, in order to survive in this world and be happy in the process, you have to really shove every chip you've got into the center of the table. And that doesn't mean quitting. It means taking a really serious look at who you are as a user. You've heard me tell the story of my particular journey, and my journey doesn't have to be yours. There are 5,000 ways to get to sobriety, to get to a life without doing drugs. There are as many ways as there are people. But the one thing that is a constant is you're either going to put to bed the life that you had, or you're just going to quit using. If you put to bed the life that you have, you can be a happy individual. You can party, right? Your life can be a party. But if all you're going to do is get rid of the chemical, then that's simply not going to happen. And we all know someone like that. I'm not using illustrations that you people can't understand. Everyone has met the person who gets sober and then hates the world because of it. You know, I had a relative that did it for 30 years. I mean, he was just the most miserable person in the world. And every time you saw him, you know, he was not literally, but figuratively just white knuckling it. He was going to get through that day, damn it. People, that's no way to live. That's absolutely no way to live. So, as I said, my journey, people are familiar with. I took a piece of paper and I wrote down the reasons that I was going to quit. Now, a couple of guys are going to pop up in the comment section right now and tell me that you can't quit for this person, that person, this. Look, man, give it a rest. You absolutely can use the people that you love as the driving force for why you quit. Sure, you're doing it for yourself. But at 2:00 in the morning, when you're shaken and you're picking up the telephone to call somebody to bring dope over, the fact that you're doing it for yourself doesn't stop you from making that phone call very often. I tried it for decades. And then I developed a relationship with my daughter for the first time ever. She had been kicked out of my life. And when I had a chance to build a relationship with my daughter, something changed. When the time came that I could pick up a phone and dial the phone, the first thing I thought about was the disappointment that my child was going to experience if Dad went back to prison. The disappointment that, you know, my daughter was going to experience when all of these people, you know, started to tell her that we were right about your dad, weren't we? Look at him. That was my why. And that was the first page. And she wasn't the only thing on there. There were an awful lot of things on there that, that were my why. My dad was on there, but a lot of family, and a lot of things that are so personal that I won't share them here. But there was a list of why. The second page, people, is what I'm talking about when I'm saying you need to shove every single chip you got into the center of the table. I'm talking about page 2. For me, page 2 was what you often read about in the 12 steps, where you take a searching moral inventory. I did that. And I was viciously honest with myself for the first time in 40 some odd years. I didn't try to BS myself. I started to list exactly who I was. I was a thief. I was a liar. I was a con man. I was somebody that couldn't be trusted. I was an employee that was going to call in sick. And if I could steal tools from the job site, I most assuredly was going to do that. If there was a way that I could come back an hour and 20 minutes late from work, from lunch and not get caught for it, or have somebody else punch me in, I was just a rampantly dishonest individual. And I'm not talking about sitting down with a pencil and a piece of paper and in 10 minutes making a list of who you are. This literally was a process that took me a week. It was a moral inventory. This was something that I dissected myself. And at the end of that week, I'm telling you, people, I was hating myself. I really was. I was absolutely hating myself. I was overwhelmed with guilt. I was overwhelmed with a feeling that I just was not a good person, and I never had been. And the next stage for me, and I have said many times before that I was guided through this process, right, by a guy that I called Q. And he never told me there was a page 3 coming, right? This is just a process that I was doing. And when I got to the end of it, I was like, man, this sucks. You know what I mean? Like, I can't believe you got me doing this, man. And, at that juncture, when he said, now, you know everything about yourself that you hate. I said, yeah. He said, are there things about you that you like? I said, not particularly. I mean, truthfully, there was not a lot there. It was tough. And he said, well, then go design the person that you want to be. And it may sound silly to you people, but that's exactly what I did. I sat down and I designed the person that I wanted to be. And I listed it right from the start, right at the top of the page on down. And it was amazing how much it corresponded, almost line to line, with the things that I had written on the first one, right? I wanted to be an honest person. I wanted my word to be my bond. I wanted to be in a situation where if I said, I'm going to do this, people knew I was going to do it. If I said I'll be there, I was going to be there. I wanted to be somebody that somebody could count on. I wanted to be the person that, if somebody was in a bind for any reason, I was the first name they thought of when they picked up the telephone to call for help. That's really who I wanted to be. And I wanted to make sure that I was there for my family. And I started to put this list together. And when I got to the end of it, I took it, put it back on the table, and then I started to look at it and put it into some form of an order. Because with all of these things that I wanted to be, it seemed like there were some that were far more important than others. So I started rearranging this and putting those on the top of the list. And when I was done with page 3, I shoved every single flippin' chip of my life into the center of the table and made a decision that no matter what happened in my life, I was not going to let a chemical keep me from being the cat on page 3. It wasn't going to happen. And no matter what that meant, no matter what form that took, I knew what the enemy was. And for me, plain and simple, the enemy was heroin, right? Or any of the other, opiates that had been dragging me down my entire life. That had to go. That had to be the focus of my life. I had to be all in. And in the process of the next couple of years, I got really good at becoming the person that I wanted to be. It didn't happen overnight, people. Nothing that is worth anything happens overnight. But as I talked about in this morning's video, when I said great acts are made up of small deeds, I started to learn what that meant. I started to learn that by doing the teeniest of things and doing them consistently and over and over and over again, that I was able to start putting together, who Tommy was going to be. And where I'm going to talk about, people, right? How long have we been together? I'm going to mention that when the sun comes up, and I watch the sun come up over the mountain every single morning, I have 3 or 4 really silly, insignificant things that most people would probably laugh at. that are so important to me because it literally sets the tone for everything I'm going to do that day. And they were 3 things that you could not count on me doing when I was the page 2 person, right? There was no chance that was going to happen. I was going to make the bed, and I was going to do a hell of a job at it, by the way. I think the average drill sergeant would be happy with how I make the bed. The next thing I do, I go in and I brush my teeth, and then I spend time, with my God. I spend time for religion is a big part of my life. It doesn't have to be a part of yours. It doesn't. But something has to take a structure in your life. Whatever you do when you get up in the morning and you start to put these things together. I saw somebody in the comments section. I can't really follow you people while I'm doing this. It's almost impossible. But I saw someone that was talking about the fact that he had been in prison. You're familiar with the term programming, right? If you've done any time, people, convicts will all talk to one another about, are you on a good program? Are you doing the same thing basically day in, day out to eat up the time that you're in there? Sobriety is no different. You got to get a program that you're working. For some people, that means going to meetings twice, 3 times a day. And if that's what works for you, God bless you. If that's what's working and that's what's going to keep you sober, then I'm more happy than anything. I really don't. I don't care what that form, your program takes. I just want that these people who are making an effort to change their life realize that there's nothing haphazard about this. We spend more time planning dates with girlfriends than we do planning our sobriety. And folks, that's downright stupid. We come to this ridiculous concept that if I just set down the beer, right, well, then I'm sober. All I got to do is just, I quit drinking this stuff. I'm fine. People, that's not all in, right? That's you not consuming alcohol. That's not what we're talking about. When I'm talking about all in, I'm talking about fundamentally changing who you are, fundamentally changing the person who was getting high. And you will find for many of you, not all of you, but you'll find for many of you that the addiction is a symptom of a much larger problem. However, you're never going to figure out what that problem is if you're loaded. You're never going to figure out what that problem is if you're tweaking. You're never going to figure out what that problem is if you got a straw in your nose, a needle in your arm, a beer in your hand. You understand? In order to start looking at the driving factors behind what is making you feel the need to be loaded your entire life, you're going to have to cut the chemical out of your life so that you can begin to focus on who and what you are. Figure out what it is that is driving you. But trust and believe, people, that's not going to happen while you're loaded. So when we talk about shoving all in, putting every chip you got in the middle of the table, we're talking about getting that chemical out of your body and out of your life long enough for your brain to start firing on all 8 cylinders. That's going to be a different thing for every person, and it's going to be a different thing for every chemical. Guaranteed. How long have you been doing what you're doing? If you've been shooting heroin for 2 decades, your brain is not going to snap back in 24 hours so you can sit down and go, let's get this together. I want to get this figured out. No, you're going to be it's going to be one of those situations that there's going to be a period of time while the chemistry in your brain chemistry gets back on course. Now, I've said many times on the show that the addiction that has been studied the most since this whole thing became a science of sorts, since the medical community and the scientific community really started taking a hard look at addiction. The one that they really, really have studied most is alcoholism. For that reason, they can tell you that for the most part, and nothing is etched in stone, people, everyone is a little bit different, but they say that at about 14 days for the average alcoholic, 14 days without alcohol, and the stabilization of the brain is in full swing. Doesn't mean you're 100% there, but it means you're deep into that process. For some people, that might be 9 days. For other people, it might be 21. But I promise you, if you're a drinker, by the end of that first 30 days, the drink is no longer working on your brain and what your brain does. the thought processes that are taking place in your brain are no longer affected by alcohol. That isn't to say that the desire for alcohol will not still be working on your brain, because obviously, people, it's going to work on your brain for the rest of its life at some point, right? I mean, at some level. But there is booze in there causing trouble and making it difficult for you to think. By the time you got 30 days off of that stuff, you are in good shape. Now you really can start taking a very serious look at the issues that caused you to want to be drunk all the time, or the issues that make you want to do whatever it is that you do. I had a friend that used to talk about heroin all of the time. He was in recovery, and he used to say that the needle takes things away. The needle doesn't give you anything. It doesn't matter what you think. All it does is take things away. And in our group sessions, people would say, no, you know what? It gave me confidence. And he'd say, no, it took away, fear, and it took away social anxiety. It didn't give you anything. And the truth of the matter is, addiction in general doesn't give you squat. It takes things away. So the question becomes, for the average person shoving their chips into the center of the table, what so badly in your life needed to be taken away that you were willing to drug yourself around the clock 365 days a year? If you don't answer that question, you're not going to get to where you want to be. And make no mistake, people, whether you believe this or not, there are people for whom, and this is a new phenomenon. In fact, when you start studying this stuff in textbooks, this is a new phenomenon. But there are people for whom there really are not a whole lot of underlying issues. There are people who are fairly content in life, and things were fun, and they weren't, overcoming childhood trauma, and they weren't, dealing with social, stigmas and things that they just started partying. And in the beginning, it was just a fun release. I smoked a few joints and we hung out with friends, and it caused you to giggle, and it just was fun. And then somebody introduced, a little bit of blow, or somebody brought in some pills. And people, you can party, right? In the air quotes version of the term party, until the next thing you know, you have a dependency. So am I telling you that as you start to work through this, that obviously mom and dad beat you, or there's no reason you'd be drinking? It's nothing like that. But I'm telling you that there is something that you wanted taken away. Whatever that is, you need to at least spend time trying to determine exactly what it is that caused you to be the addict. And when you start to get a handle on that, people, then you can truthfully start to move from where you are to where you want to be. Every day in sobriety, there are going to be people who preach this can't be done except by yourself. You're the only person that can help you get sober. I agree with that 100%. I do. However, when you start to take apart the issues that are going on in your life, if there are people around who can talk to you about it, it becomes an easier process. Make no mistake, there is a reason that the gold standard is group therapy. There is a reason that the gold standard is group therapy, because finding other people who are in the same boat works. We didn't invent it, people. I assure you. It was invented by far smarter individuals than myself and Mark. I assure you, far smarter people. However, knowing what works and then trying to maybe take it into the new millennium, which is really what we do on the boat, right? We're using a time-tested and true method of addicts leaning on one another, sharing stories with one another, supporting one another, and we're bringing it into the modern age. That's all we're doing, right? It's all we're doing. And social media, truthfully, is the best platform in the world for that. The only problem is there are a lot of people out there who don't see that and would rather just disrupt than see people be happy or sober, right? That's our job. We work on that. Your job, people, is to shove every chip into the middle of the table. As I said this morning, the easiest part is to just say those two words, I quit. From there, you start coming up with the minutia and the day-to-days and the things that you have to do. I would greatly recommend writing a goodbye letter, putting a punctuation on the last part of your life and highlighting the next part of your life, starting it out. And the best way to do that, I have found, and so has many another person in recovery, is to do a goodbye letter. I'm sorry, I was looking at a question that somebody had texted me that concerned wondering why you have to hit rock bottom before you have a chance. The truth of the matter is, people, there are a ton of people that got sober before they hit rock bottom. The logical answer to that question, though, is this: why do you have to hit rock bottom before you get sober? Why is it that the last place that you look for something is where you find it? Because you stop looking once you get your keys, right? Okay, when you hit rock bottom, you very rarely have any other choice but to take a really good hard look at your life, right? When you hit that lowest point, when you are at the bottom, is usually when an addict will throw his hands in the air and say, "I surrender," right? I have watched addicts do things that are so amazing. There's a clip of film on the internet. I'm not sure if you can still find it. I saw it years ago, but it was a gentleman who was able to escape from a work crew, right, at a county jail. And he took the police on a high speed chase. He went into a cul-de-sac where he drove the stolen truck in circles, right, in the cul-de-sac, until one of his friends went up and threw a package through the window. This man was going to fix. That was the only goal he had. So he drove in circles in this truck using his knees so that he could cook up the dope, stick a needle in his arm, and get that last fix into him. Now, that's 4 more years of incarceration for escape so that he could stick a needle in his arm one more time. Make any sense to you? Of course not, right? It's absolutely ridiculous. And it's only one example of things that you would not believe, because rock bottom wasn't quite there yet, right? But I promise you, when that guy got in front of the judge and the judge gave him 4 more years for that fix, and then he realized a couple of days later, as the dope stick started to wear off, if that was the point of rock bottom, you get to a point as an addict or an alcoholic or whatever your drug of choice is, a drug addict, an alcoholic, even a gambler, whatever it is, you get to a point where you're so terrified of where you're at, right? That's usually rock bottom, where it's just so awful. I'm telling you, I hit rock bottom before I started climbing back out. I've told the story. I had just gotten stabbed. I was in solitary confinement, and I got a goodbye letter from the woman I was married to. I'm in there thinking it's like the scene from Tommy Boy where the bench breaks. He sits and talks about all the bad things happening, and the bench breaks, and he goes, "Could have done without that." I mean, that was me. I'm in a cell in solitary confinement. I had recently had a stroke, so I walked with a cane that they took away from me. I'm in there. I can't walk. I got 2 stab wounds, and the world was just sort of crumbling in around me. And mail call came, and I'm like, I got a letter from the wife. That'll cheer you up. And I opened it, and the opening line said, "There's 2 million things that I would love to say to you." She didn't say any of them, people. She went with, but I think I'll just go with, "I want a divorce." Could have done without that, right? That was rock bottom. And for me, the realization that it's all over. There's nobody to go home to. I'm sick, and where I'm at, there's no way I'm getting dope, right? Shy of trying to tunnel out of that bad boy to get to the yard in solitary confinement, they didn't even let porters, come into that part of the prison. There's no one smuggling anything into you. You're done. And I knew at that point I was going to get sober, whether I liked it or not. And I had done that, I don't know how many times in my life, but with the wife leaving and the stab wounds and all of the things that were happening, I thought, this is it. It can't get any worse than this. And that moment of surrender where you just go, "That's it, God," or "That's it, universe," or "That's it, whatever. I'm willing to do whatever at this point." I think that's the reason that so many people talk about hitting rock bottom before they get sober, but it is not a necessity by any stretch. You heard people already who have come on here and given their testimonials who were able to quit before, getting to that point. My partner here did not go to prison, right? You know how rare that is for an opiate addict to really, most opiate addicts decide to quit right around the time that they get incarcerated. Mark's story is very unique in that, he wasn't, he'll tell you he wasn't in tall cotton and living on top of the world, but he most assuredly was not at the rock bottom that most addicts describe and that you sort of conjure up in your head when you think rock bottom. You know, the old cliche, it's you're going to end up in, in a hospital, a morgue, or in prison. And usually it's the hospital or prison that gets an opiate addict to really take a good hard look at their life. But it is not a necessity, people. And on that same kind of question, uh, or that same kind of thought, nothing is etched in stone. There is no constant to any of this, other than the fact that it really is falls squarely on the shoulders of the person who's quitting. But why do you have to hit rock bottom before you quit? You don't have to. There are so many ways. Every person you meet will have a slightly different story for how they got sober. Every single person you meet. I mean, even if you take 25 people who all say, yeah, I went to a 12-step program, they did not work the 12 steps the same way. Everybody, that's a program. The 12 steps is just a guideline, right, that has been put together so that you're actually working a program. If you're new to this channel and you just got to the boat, you can go back and listen to the steps that I worked. I did not work a 12-step program. I wrote my own, which is considered by most a cardinal sin. But there were parts of the 12-step program that just plain didn't work for me. And as opposed to, doing the, well, I'm going to go, no, I'm just going to pick and choose. There was parts of it I thought were genius. There were parts of it that I thought, absolutely, I need to do this in order to work this program. But if I got a sponsor, they weren't going to go, yeah, go ahead and skip number whatever. That's just not how it works. So I was blessed to have a gentleman by the name of Q that kind of worked me through it. And when I said, what about steps? He was like, yeah, write some. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, put together your own program. You think you need some steps to work? Write them down. I'm telling you right now, you want to, if you want to do you want to write your own program, absolutely write your own program. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you get to the finish line, people, and you get to the finish line happy. You get to the finish line, not someone who's just chemical free, but someone who's living their best life, someone who is downright happy. Then who cares how you got there? You don't have to take Captain Tommy's version of that. And that isn't what we preach here. What we preach here is that you keep coming here and you're going to meet people who are going to impart wisdom on you. Everybody. The comment section is dripping with real life experiences of people who have managed to fight the good fight and win. Okay, so it's just a matter of finding that path, the path that is going to work for you. But if you think you're going to do it by just saying no more beer, I'm telling you, people, might get you off alcohol, but I don't think it's going to get you the long-term happy sobriety that you want. And that is the difference between just setting down the bottle and shoving all in and looking at every single aspect of your life and taking apart who you are, who you want to be, and putting it all back together so that you design the human being you hope to be. And before I open this up, people, to questions and everything else, the biggest benefit of doing it this way, of redesigning who you are, is when 2 to 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road, 5 years down the road, whenever it is that the weight and the guilt of what you have done in your past starts to come at you like a sledgehammer or a wrecking ball, the fact that you really have created a new human, that's what keeps me going. All of the things that I've done, that wasn't me. I don't care. You can say whatever you want to that, but it wasn't. If you talk to, I promise you, people, Jack really is coming on here. It's just a matter of time, but Jack's been busy, but I am getting him on here. And he'll tell you, if you met me today and you had known me from 10 years ago, you wouldn't realize I was the same person, not in any way. So for me, it's very easy to say to myself, the things that I did, they're mine. I owned them, but that person died with my addiction. I actually had to write something today. I was accepted into a college today, people, a university that I will be studying, going back and getting a master's degree in chemical dependency. I've told you all this before, but today I officially enrolled and did all of that. And unfortunately, right around the time I was ready to dot the I's and cross the T's, the question popped up: have you ever been convicted of a felony? And I thought, oh, Lord, like I didn't see this one coming. And I was in the unique position to say, yes, there have been many. In fact, I was doing it with a counselor that was helping me through the process that worked for the university. And, I said, do you just want greatest hits, or do you want me to, to list every one of these? Because you gave me 300 words, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to pull that off in 300 words. And at first she started laughing. I said, no, I'm dead serious. And she said, well, then maybe you want to list the bigger stuff. But I wrote on there, I realized that a lot of the things that you're going to read are going to make you think that maybe I'm not, the guy you want in here. But here's what I'm doing with my life now. Here's what I've dedicated my life to being. And I promise you that the person who robbed banks, ran guns, robbed things, that person died with the addiction. Plain and simple. That person died with the addiction. And the person that's filling out this app, I mean, the proof is that I'm filling out the app. Holy God, do you think page 2 Tommy would be filling out an app to go to school? I mean, unless he was casing the joint, there's no chance I would have been anywhere near a school. It's just not something that logically would have been a part of my life. But yeah, for me, the real fringe benefit of redesigning your life is the ability to grapple with what you've done in the past. Because if you're just the same person, only you're not using, then it's very difficult to forgive yourself for what you've done. And you didn't make any changes. If you don't make any changes, people, you're going to be miserable. I think we all know someone like that, right? I promise you, we all know somebody like that. Don't be that person. All right, people, I do want to open this up to questions. Before I do, just one last shout out again, in case you didn't see the morning video. I want to give a big shout out to the people at Marfugal News for giving us a platform to Mark did a great interview over there. If you haven't seen it, shame on you, because it's a great interview. And he was given an opportunity at the end. He very politely asked, "Hey, would it be all right if I told you about my other channel?" Which was awesome. And they said, "Please," And then they were kind enough to then take that and put a link on it over on their website, which is just beyond kind. And a lot of you who are listening to me right now came over from Marfugal. If you haven't checked them out, people, go over there. As much as I badmouth news every single day, this isn't what I'm badmouthing. Go over there and check it out. I think you're going to dig it. I really do. And so thank you. And now, my favorite part of the show, people, I get to open my my cherry limeade beverage while my partner, takes it away. Right. Mark, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Hope everybody out there is doing good. I've been watching the chat there. You guys are having some really good conversation in there. I really like the chat tonight. It's pretty productive. You guys are in there doing your thing, just like always. But yeah, I would echo, one thing you said there that kind of, like myself, I never did have a rock bottom. And the main reason was because I have such a great support system. That is why, and like he was saying, and like Tommy was saying a minute ago, not everybody has that kind of stuff, and everybody needs it. You know what I'm saying? And that's why, again, you can come here and get some of that. But for me, no rock bottom. And it plays into what we talked about a video or two back about how we, I lost my thought there. Sorry.
Happens to the best of us.
Oh, goodness gracious. But no, rock bottom is not something that you have to hit. And, it was like, you don't have to be, how can I put this? You don't have to be forced into this. You don't have to any of that. You can choose, and you don't have to do it for yourself. That's what I was trying to say earlier. But hitting rock bottom, sometimes when you do that, you're still really not even doing that for yourself. You just don't have any other choice. And that's the thing. And let me tell you something. That's a good thing. Okay? Most of the time. It forces you to look at yourself 100% up and down. Most of us that are the addicts, we you walk by a mirror, you wouldn't even look in it because you were just so sick of seeing it.
Yep.
You can't lie to yourself. You can try, but it doesn't work. And that's what happens oftentimes. And and to hit rock bottom, I think everybody's rock bottom is different too. I guess, when me and Tommy first started talking, I would, we would talk about, hey, the Christian thing and the Bible and stuff like that. But I say that because everybody has their own moral lines that they won't cross, no matter what. You know, there's certain things that people will do and won't do just based on their personal belief system. They would rather die than do certain things. And, you know, and what that does, at least in my head, it makes you think that, hey, well, that is why certain people have a different rock bottom. Because what's rock bottom for me may not be rock bottom for Captain. It may not be rock bottom for Leisure or Arizona. So, you know, I would definitely, you know, like you said, work your own program if you need to. Again, you're not going to hear that usually from any kind of professional, whatever. And I don't think it's so much that they don't believe that. It's just that they can't say that. Because if they say that, then they're making themselves liable and all these other kinds of things they're not allowed to do. But, again, we're not doctors. Tommy will be. He's getting him a master's, but, you know, that is what it is. Hey, guys, is Tommy's picture stuck? This video stuck?
I hope not.
I could hear you, but hold on a minute. Okay, there you go. You're back. All right. It might have just been on my end. Sorry, guys. Sorry. That's probably me. I know we didn't lose audio, but yeah, we're good. Okay. But yeah, you know, for me, you talked about like I told you guys a story about my wife. You know, she knew exactly what I needed to hear. When I was going into rehab, I was so afraid when I come out, nobody would be there. So my rock bottom actually came after I started to get help. Because I knew I was getting ready to walk back in that place and I didn't know what it was going to look like when I came back out. And that scared me more than anything. So, you know, and again, I was a quote unquote functioning addict. You know, I don't like using that word functioning because, yeah, obvious reasons, but that was me. I was doing life. Nobody even knew. And I'm not even kidding. When I say those things, I'm not kidding when I say nobody knew but probably my closest people, which would be my wife. My son knew because my idiot brain took him with me to buy pills. You know, that's the only reason why he knew. It's certain things like that that stick in your head, and man, it takes time, guys. And I want to say something to Alfred, if he's still in here. He said he was 10 years sober. I just want to say congratulations on that. I don't think he's here, and I think he left. That was pretty early on when he was in here. If you're in here, Alfred, good job, bud. But just wanted to say that, and you know, I really don't have much more to say on that end of it. And if you guys got some questions, please pop them in there. I know Swiss Vapor was wanting to make a comment. If you had something you wanted to say, Swiss, go ahead and throw it in there, and we'll voice it.
You know what? I think I got it.
Did you?
Yeah, I believe Swiss was talking about, so he had a meltdown today. And he was fortunate that he said he started cursing in Aussie, which is, I don't know, there's something to that I find humorous. I'm not laughing at you, but there's something about cursing in Aussie that sort of cracks me up. But he said he was fortunate that his son was there to talk him down. And it's, you know, and keep him from going back. He said he's blessed that he loves his family more than his old friend, you know, obviously referring to his DOC. And that's just really what we're talking about, people. It's talking about page one. You know, you keep going back to the things that are more important than, you know, exactly, you know, what drives the addiction. And in this case, you know, the love of his son, you know, not only was able to talk him down and calm him down, but just as important, you know, it was there to remind him that he loves him far more than he does his old buzz. And that is a beautiful thing. You know, clearly defining your why and clearly understanding the whys behind why you do not use is something that will always carry you through. He says, my son is 9. Vape, you got to love that, man. You have got to love that. First of all, I can't tell you how happy I am to see you on a live feed that we actually got to at the same time. You know, normally Vape shows up right around 3 minutes before it's off and he says, hey, Tommy, what time does this live feed end? Seems like we do that a lot, Vape. So I'm happy you're here, my brother, and I'm proud of you. I really am. That's That's taking this and working this. This is just what we're talking about. Having the tools in place and doing the right thing. Time and time again. I'm proud of you, man. I really am. Another one that a couple of things. First of all, Brandon, 16 days, brother. Brandon is still doing the right thing every day, man. Fighting the good fight.
That's right.
Brandon, I love you, my brother. We're proud of you. Everybody is. Make no mistake. We are proud of you.
I wanted to say hi to Sarah. Thanks for stopping in and come back whenever you're ready.
Would that be Sarah Normally?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I was actually had that down on the list as well. I don't think I've ever had an opportunity to welcome you to the boat. And we would love to see more of you. We're here every day. We come around this time every single day. And tomorrow, if you've not seen us do one of our interviews, gives you an opportunity to see people on the boat and how they are doing, fighting the good fight. Tomorrow's going to be a great one for that, people.
Yeah,
also,
Swiss. That's an interesting, I guess, side thing to talk about. Swiss says we got Asperger's. That adds a little bit more complication to all of that. That is a little bit more of a struggle,
and it's it's hard in a sentence to to understand because of the wide spectrum. For Asperger's, there are it really people it comes in about 14 different flavors and sizes, so to speak. But all of them are a challenge. And you're right. People with, if anyone listening is unfamiliar with that, it's it's on the autism spectrum disorder, and it's one of the things that really it allows people to do some really amazing things. They're usually very, very. Sarah says she could use some prayers. I didn't mean to squirrel. They usually are very, very gifted and talented in some areas, more so than the average person. Your brain is working amazingly, doing so many things. But sometimes the challenge becomes not in IQ, intelligent quotient, but more in EQ, which is your emotional quotient. And oftentimes that's where the challenge lies, which would probably be why these meltdowns, occur for him more often than not. But doing the right thing, just doing the right thing, and it's paying off.
Yep.
You got through it. Your son was there to help you and to calm you down, and that's just, that is absolutely beautiful.